Klook. How we doing? Did we do it? Are we here? Are we live? And bonk. Oh yeah, bonk. All right. How you guys doing? Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Hope everything's happening for you. Hope everything's happening for you. Oh, I had a nice weekend, you know? Like, the place I work at's pretty decent. We're doing pretty decent numbers. Good evening to you, Anemone. How you doing? Hope you had a good weekend. Hope things worked out for you. Oh, man. Just seems like the world's blowing up, eh? Seems like the world is just blowing up. Went to an open mic night on Friday. It went very, 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 very well. I'm glad that you're sharing this pic around the socials. Protest, come protest. I've been promoting it as I can, but you know how it is. August 1st, 4 p.m., Bloor and Bedford. Please come. Please come. Right? We need as many bodies as we can. We need as much support as we can. We need to do something. We need to do something, right? So, I haven't played this tune in a while. I'm going to play it. Let me know. I'm going to move away. My mic is sitting like right here, and so I'm a little worried that my guitar is going to be too loud. Let me know. Let me know. The sound is so new and different, and anyway. You gotta get ahead of the human race, 'cause we're the lazy ones working at the end of your nukes and your guns, and we don't even care. Bring on the doom, light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. God let his chosen ones wander forever in the burning sun, and 10 times worse the fate for us. Forget him, worship the dust, 'cause we don't even care. Bring on the doom, light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. Baptize us with rising tides, never let us see what hides inside, and cover our sins with dollar signs. The fire will burn away our pride, and you could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all. You chose this. Oh, we don't even care. Bring on the doom. Light up this apocalypse. We'll be going soon. We don't even care. Bring on the doom. Light up this apocalypse. We'll be going soon. Yeah, we'll be going soon. You got hit with a JP ad before this? Which one? Jordan Peterson? Was it a Jordan Peterson ad? That's hilarious, bud. Yeah, you gotta learn to believe in yourself. And the only way for you to believe in yourself is to give money to me, Jordan Peterson. Believe in yourself through giving money to Jordan Peterson. That dude, man. That dude. Like, it is at the point now where if you're still... Like, we all had our journey with Jordan Peterson. And it really is to the point now where if you're still like a JP simp, it's done. It's over. Like, you're a dum-dum. Like, I'm glad that he like gave you the boost in your life that you needed. But like, the guy is making fun of fat women. Like, the guy is making fun of like, not even fat women. Like, the guy's making fun of like curvaceous women, right? Like, what was the most recent scandal that he did? There was something else that he just keeps making himself look like a total douche nozzle constantly over and over again. Well, and of course, you thought he was BS, right? I got to be straight with you on this. Jordan Peterson speaks directly to the soul of the young white male. Like, young white men are like, he's doing something to young white men. And if you're not a young white man, right? If you're not a young white man, it's easy. It's easier to see, right? Because, like, and I'll say it even now. Like, even now, when I know that he's like a racist, transphobic piece of shit, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with saying, you know, life's hard and you gotta find a way to get through it, you know? And there's things that you can do. You know, you could get a haircut. You could pick yourself up and you clean your bedroom, you know? You do your dishes. There's just, like, nothing fundamentally wrong with that. And in fact, there is something admirable about just giving people kind of the kick in the pants that they need to be able to do it. And if that's all he ever did, I would be like, yeah, Jordan Peterson's fine. There's nothing wrong, right? But that's not what he does, and that's not what he's continuing to do, right? Like, it's just getting more and more obvious that the guy is nuts, just a little nutty, frankly. I learned about him, I think, in 2016, when he was yelling about pronouns. Knew he had a few screws loose then. Seems a few. No, they were always loose. This is the reality, right? Is that it gets harder and harder to hide it. Like, it just gets harder and harder to hide it. You know, it's very difficult to pretend to be something you're not. It's very difficult to play this game of, like, oh, I'm a normal person, you know, I'm just a little center right? I'm just a regular, you know, a classical liberal, right? Like, all that kind of stuff. It just gets harder and harder to maintain that as you go on. And eventually it'll just be like, Peterson sounds like I think a turkey sandwich dropped in dishwater would sound like. Have you heard the list of the recent ruling that SCOTUS did in the U.S.? I do have an article here about the SCOTUS that we will get to. The Supreme Court. Not that one. Yeah, that one. It's hard to overstate the danger of the voting case the Supreme Court just agreed to hear. The issue presented in this case has been a recurring one in recent years. Two parts of the Constitution give state legislatures the power to set certain rules. And in such cases, yabba yabba, essentially the majority saw voters passing legislation as initiatives. Essentially, it would allow the Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court, to overturn the legislative decisions made in independent states. So, like, if the state of Iowa, if their Supreme Court decides to make a ruling, well, the federal Supreme Court can come in and be like, nope. Yeah, you just ruined dishwater turkey sandwiches for me. Perfect, man. You know what, guys? I gotta tell you, sometimes I sit here and I kind of am like, I'm coming up to the show and I'm kind of like feeling down on myself. You know how, as one does. Like, I'm just like, is this effective? Is this good spending my time? All this kind of stuff. And then shit like that just reminds me, yeah, this is great. Even if all that happens is I get a good laugh, worth it. I'm so happy you guys are all here, honestly. I'm so happy that we're all going through this catastrophe together. And that's right, Nova Scotia. My dishwater turkey sandwiches, I don't know if I could ever enjoy them ever again. Now I'll always think, like, I'll be biting into it and be like, the Chaos Dragon and the feminine. Yeah. That Chaos Dragon stuff, dude, that's the best. If you ever really want to wade into the weeds of, like, just some absolute... Never mind Peterson, what do you think about James Corbett and his reports? I don't think James Corbett is ringing a bell, but I don't know if I've got an image on James Corbett. There's always some lunatic, right? Like, it's always something else, right? Like, as soon as Peterson fades out of the consciousness, there's always some other Looney Tunes. James Corbett. You know what? I just don't know who this guy is. Who's this guy? James Corbett. The Corbett Report, open source intelligence news. Is this him? Am I in the right territory? I don't know anything about this guy, dude. Sorry, I don't know who this is. This live stream is a bit of sanity in an insane world. That's a wonderful thing to say, Nova Scotia. I try. God help me, I try. I try. That wasn't what I was referring to. Jason P. Steed Twitter feed has a huge list of all the recent rulings. What SCOTUS did. Eric, why don't you put that in the Discord, okay? Put that in the Discord. We'll bring it up. That looks like something good to go through. Because the Supreme Court's gone crazy, right? And it genuinely looks like what is happening in the United States is that the Democratic Party is basically just ceding authority to them. They're not doing anything legislatively to prevent anything from happening. And that means that when the Republicans get in, they're just gonna do more, right? So like it's over for America, right? Like I don't know what to tell anybody. Like I don't know how to get it across to people. Like it's over, right? The Democrats are not responding because they're paid not to, and they're pretending. But their grift is that we'll keep fighting for you. Give us more money and we'll keep fighting for you. They're not. Like they're just not. Like I don't know what to tell you. You know, if you're one of these people out in the world that's like, I'm gonna give $10 to the Democrats because they're gonna fight for me. Like there's something gone wrong in your brain. Like there's something wrong in your brain space if you actually think that's happening. And the next, like the midterms are gonna be so bad for these Democrats that like Biden may resign. Like it's going to be really bad. Like it's going to be a blowout. And then the presidency is likely going to be Trump again, right? So like it's over. Like it's over. The amount of pullback that you are going to see, the amount of regression that you are going to see is going to be amazing. It's going to be so amazing. Like you're not going to believe how massive a pullback it's going to be, how massive a regression. Like they're going to go into things that make like the 1800s look progressive. Like it's going to be really stunning. It's going to be stunning. All right, here we go. This is from Jason P. Steed. Today marks the end of what is surely one of the worst terms in SCOTUS history. Fantastic. SCOTUS history. Guns and prayer and abortion got most of the attention, but that's not all the court did. Here's just some of the court's bad decisions. Rivus Villages. SCOTUS reversed the lower court to give cop qualified immunity for using excessive force. So essentially, cops can just use excessive force now. Get fucked. Just like, as much as they want, impunity. SCOTUS reversed the lower court to give a cop qualified immunity for killing a man. Am I reading this right? Reverse the lower court. Because I'm reading this like it's SCOTUS reversed the lower court. Oh, I see, right? They reversed the lower court in order to give the cop qualified immunity for giving excessive force. So they protected a cop. And then reverse the lower court to give a cop qualified immunity for killing a man. So basically, cops kill men, cops use excessive force, off you go, to the races. The Supreme Court will defend your right to do so, cops. Go ahead. Made it harder to get habeas relief. There is no habeas corpus. If you don't know what habeas corpus is, it's the right to... hold on, let's get specific. That's the kind of thing that I used to know, because I remember when it was overturned. Habeas corpus definition. And I was aghast when it happened. Yeah, a writ requiring a person under arrest to be brought before a judge or into a court. Yeah, like to have a swift trial, right? Like to actually be allowed to get a lawyer, be allowed to get access to a legal system of some kind. It was underneath, it was like Homeland Security, right? The Homeland Security bill basically removed habeas corpus, and essentially made it so that if a cop picks you up, they can basically keep you wherever they want for as long as they want, right? That started happening under Bush. Obama made it worse. We had reports of like black sites in Chicago, shit like this. SCOTUS made it harder to get habeas relief, straight up. Just like, yeah, this habeas corpus thing, forget about it. You don't need that. SCOTUS allowed the government to withhold information about torture on CIA black sites. Huh? Isn't that fun? Isn't this fun? SCOTUS denied SS benefits to residents of Puerto Rico. So, get fucked, Puerto Ricans. No social security benefits for you. Not that that's big news. Like most, yeah. We're getting reports now. Millennials may lose up to $675,000 in social security benefits. Get fucked. Get fucked, everybody. SCOTUS disallowed recovery for emotional distress damages in civil rights lawsuits. SCOTUS stripped federal courts of jurisdiction to review fact issues in immigration proceedings. Hold on. Stripped federal courts of jurisdiction to review fact issues in immigration proceedings. So essentially, if the state of Texas says this is what we're going to do in regards to immigration proceedings, let's say on the Mexican border, the federal court, it no longer has jurisdiction. So essentially, they're ceding that power to Texas, basically. Isn't that fun? No federal oversight on what happens to immigrants, you know, in these ICE detention centers. Isn't that nice? SCOTUS blocked a federal vaccine mandate. That's fun. SCOTUS denied long-detained immigrants access to a bond hearing. So straight up, just like we pick up immigrants in these ICE detention centers, right, in our concentration camps, right, and now we're just denying them a bond hearing. Straight up, just like if you're coming over that border, we're going to pick you up and we're going to jam you in a cell and we're going to forget about you. That's what we're doing here in America. USA! 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 Like, how much longer until they just start cleansing those, right? Hey, Christopher, how you doing, bud? I'll get to your question in just a second, okay? I'm just going, this is some of these SCOTUS decisions. At this stage in the game, I feel like I'm just like, hi-de-di-de-di-de-di-di-di-di-di-di-di. Like, it's all a crapshoot at this point, right? It's all downhill from here, guys. It's not getting better. Like, learn to laugh at it. Learn to laugh at it. Try to survive it best you can. It's not going to get better. SCOTUS struck down campaign finance restrictions to enable Ted Cruz to pay himself back for loans he made to his own campaign. So, wait. SCOTUS struck down campaign finance restrictions, which enabled Ted Cruz, so Ted Cruz can pay himself back for loans that he made to his own campaign. This seems really skeezy. That's all. Just seems really skeezy. Seems like a good way to launder money, right? Like, if I was Ted Cruz and I was getting illicit money from a mob or something like this, seems like a great way to launder that money, which I'm sure he's doing, for sure. Like, Ted Cruz is for sure like a gangster. SCOTUS further limited a person's ability to sue federal officers. Yeah, so if you're a federal officer, you basically do what you want. SCOTUS weakened enforcement of Miranda rights. Miranda rights are like, you have the right to remain silent, anything, yabba, 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 right? Like that whole thing we've ever seen. Well, that's gonna be a bygone era. Like, kids in the future will watch older movies and be like, why are they saying that? That's what's gonna happen. SCOTUS undermined the Establishment Clause, forcing states to fund private religious schools. Watch the society fall apart. Everybody's getting fucked. So, like, for real, you're going to have, like, a private religious school that all the rich kids are going to go to that now is also going to be funded by the state. And where do you think that money's going to come from? Right? SCOTUS undermined the Establishment Clause, allowing football coach to have publicized Christian prayers at football games. Separation of church and state. Separation of church and state. SCOTUS recognized tribal sovereignty just enough to allow an Indian defendant to be prosecuted twice for the same crime. Then, it undermined tribal sovereignty by making tribal land part of state and allowing state to exercise jurisdiction on tribal land. Huh? Remember how First Nations people in Oklahoma got a big win? Right? Hey, Rob, thanks so much for the donation. Thanks. I appreciate that, Rob. That's very kind of you. Give me some money, guys. Like, share, subscribe. Tell people I exist. So, remember how in Oklahoma... Oklahoma... Da-da-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. So, in Oklahoma, it was... They actually got huge wins, the First Nations people, right? You can see it on the map now. The Chickasaw Nation, the Choctaw Nation, the Muskogee Nation, the Osage Nation, and the Cherokee Nation, right? And now this court ruling basically says, that's great and all, but we have jurisdiction on that land. White people, aren't we the worst? SCOTUS struck down New York's 100-year restriction on concealed carry to expand and limit gun restrictions. Right, so like, if you are a gun in the United States, you now have more rights than a woman, than a pregnant woman. Right? Struck down SCOTUS allowed Texas bounty hunter anti-abortion law to go into effect. They've got bounty hunters? In regards to, like, that's crazy, man. Dude, there's the show that we need to make. Dude, that's exactly the show that we have to make. Bro, we gotta do, like, Dog the Bounty Hunter, except instead of finding people who have done, like, actual crimes, it's people hunting women who are trying to flee the state for abortions. That's the show that we need to make. We gotta do it. Oh my God. That's brutal, man. That's brutal. There are bounty hunters that are hunting women. Bro. That's the most American shit I've ever heard in my life. That there are bounty hunters hunting women who are trying to get abortions. Whoa, bro. The bounty hunter can earn $10,000 for those bounties. Bro. What? Dude. This is it. Someone's got to make this show, and you just got to do it completely straight. Totally straight. As if this bounty hunter is like the coolest guy in town, right? Going around. And in the end, he's just like ruining women's lives, ruining the lives of people, right? He could just repeat the line, life is precious. Exactly. That's his whole catchphrase. That's Rob, no one cares, okay? Who takes care of the baby after birth? The baby. That baby's got to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Right? They got to get a job, okay? They got to learn to take care of themselves in this world, and we can't have that happening if floozy women are going around aborting these rugged, tough, powerful individuals who are yet to be born into this wonderful Christian theocracy. USA, USA, USA. Overruled Roe and Casey, eliminating federal right to abortion, enabling severe, life-threatening restrictions on abortion to go into effect. Dude, the fact that there's bounty hunters, man. Ugh. SCOTUS undermined the EPA's ability to regulate emissions and fight global warming. Huh? Isn't that nice? Right? Get fucked, EPA. And it must be noted that this isn't everything. SCOTUS also did things on its shadow docket, like allow Louisiana's racial gerrymander to stay in effect for the 2022 election. Yeah, just a terrible, terrible term. Oh yeah, here we go. Gonna go ahead and add on to the thread. They were mostly minor. But thankfully, a couple of big wins. Let's see what these wins were. Strengthened the 6A right to confront witnesses. Yeah, that's good. SCOTUS made it slightly easy to pursue a claim for malicious prosecution. SCOTUS protected the religious rights of a death row inmate. Declined to enhance the punishment for certain crimes. These are minor. These are super minor. District courts more discretion to reduce criminal sentences. Yeah, that's fine. Those are super minor. Just posted a meme on Discord. Boink. Meme. Okay, hold on. Get open link. Link opened. We did it. Suppose now that the baby has been born. Then what? First, we may say that the parents, or rather the mother, who is the only certain and visible parent, as the creators of the baby, become its owners. The mother, then, is the natural and rightful owner of the baby. I'm already seeing a bit of an issue here, don't you? Don't you see the issue? See if you can spot the issue. And any attempt to seize the baby by force is an invasion of her property right. Now, if a parent may own his child within the framework of non-aggression and runaway freedom, then he may also transfer that ownership to somebody else. He may give the child up for adoption, or he may sell the rights to the child in a voluntary contract. In short, we must face the fact that the purely free society will have a flourishing free market in children. In fact, we find a large unsatisfied demand by adults and couples for children, along with a large number of surplus and unwanted babies neglected or maltreated by their parents. Applying our theory to parents and children, this means that a parent does not have the right to aggress against his children, but also that the parent should not have a legal obligation to feed, clothe, or educate his children, since such obligations would entail positive acts coerced upon the parent and depriving the parent of his rights. The parent, therefore, may not murder or mutilate his child, and the law properly outlaws a parent from doing so. But the parent should have the legal right not to feed the child. These people are demonic, right? That demonic is the only word. Like, there's no other thing that you can say about this. That's a demonic thing to say. And if you genuinely believe it, there's something wrong with your brain. Like, there's something wrong with your brain. Like, the only question should be, if a child is not getting food, the question should be why. And if it's not strictly neglect, then the society should feed that child. Right? Like, we should feed that child. This is bonkers. These people are bonkers. All right. That was a fun little SCOTUS hole, little libertarian hell. Christopher De Silva asks an interesting question. How do I feel about the new NDP leader of Ontario? The NDP do not have a leader in Ontario. They have an interim leader who is essentially a neoliberal placeholder. Will we ever get close to the days of Tommy Douglas? No. The NDP is over, as far as I'm concerned. Like, they're done. This last election for them was total humiliation, complete embarrassment, a complete indictment of the party itself. The populace essentially said, we don't see a difference between the NDP and the Conservatives, and they're right. That's a correct position to take. There is no meaningful difference between the NDP and the Conservatives at this point. There's no purpose for the NDP to exist as a party. And even most embarrassingly, if you talk to an NDPer, they pretend as though everything is fine. That's the most embarrassing part about the NDP right now, is that they are watching their party collapse as the populace abandons them, and abandons them for exactly the right reason, which is that they're a worthless, capitulated sack of nobodies who are not actually interested in confronting the issue in any kind of serious way. They're essentially right-wing liberals at this point, kind of tilting their head, going, oh, I'm so sorry for woo, right? Like, imagine somebody walking up to a house fire with a thimble full of water and throwing it on and then expecting anybody to give a shit about that. That's the NDP, right? They are not mounting a serious challenge to the major crisis that is obvious, overt, directly in front of their face. Like, they are watching people burn to death while saying, oh, we would throw thimbles of water on them. Like, they're just worthless. They should be abandoned. It was right for the populace to abandon them. Everybody should vote communist. Get rid of these guys. Stop even paying attention to them. Don't follow their newsletters. Don't listen to them. There's no reason to. They're worthless. They're completely bought, capitulated entirely. And I actually think that even attempting to work within the party at this point is a fool's errand. That's not going to be possible. They are purchased by capital. Period. And if a organization was to actually mount a credible threat internally in the NDP, then the owners would vote to dismantle the NDP itself, and they would just get rid of the party completely. So there's no reason to have the NDP. The NDP are a dead-end party that exists as controlled dissent exclusively. That's the reason they exist now. There's no path forward to get back to the old days of Tommy Douglas. You are better off starting a new political party or getting involved with your communist party, right, to actually mount a credible threat. And how do I know that that's what you do? Because that's what Tommy Douglas did. That's what Tommy Douglas actually did, right? Tommy Douglas created a party called the NDP. He won an election provincially and then ran federally, right? So if you want to see the old days of Tommy Douglas, if you want to see Tommy Douglas reborn, right, well, do what Tommy Douglas did. The NDP are dead. If they get into power, they will act precisely as liberals act. They will do no better. NDPers, who are they, Canadian? Yep, this is a Canadian thing we're doing here, James O'Quinn. James O'Quinn, that's got a very Irish, Scottish sort of ring about it, my friend. Where are you coming in from, James? But yes, the NDP is a third party option. Historically, they were the socialist option, but in recent decades, they've given up the ghost and basically sold out. There's no other way to describe it. They would be close to Labour, I guess, in British politics. Methane, I think the problem is larger still. System is too broken. Trying to work inside the system, even talking about parties and distinctions, is kind of a waste of time. Yeah, that's true. The house is on fire and we're talking about which room can be salvaged. You know what's insane? You're going to tell me, Eric. I had a conservative Christian who flat out told me with a straight face that the Texas bounty system did not went far enough. Yep. I suspect they would. We should find that woman and just shoot her down. Right? Things are going to get fucked up, guys. It's going to be fucked up. I'm surprised the NDP don't milk the hell out of Jack Layton's popularity. I mean, they try. A big reason why they stopped is because people started to see through it. People literally were just like, yeah, we get it, Jack Layton, right? Didn't he die 10 years ago? What are you giving me now? What are you putting in my hand right now? Right? And the answer is basically nothing. It's essentially we'll give you an extra sick day, right? The whole thing is falling down. They sound like the Democrats. Yeah, that's exactly what they are, right? That they basically just exist to control the dissent of the populace at this point. They don't exist to actually respond rationally to the needs of the public, right? And should we actually elect? Let's say we elect the NDP federally. Like, let's say we elect suddenly Jagmeet Singh gets a big surge of popularity, and he's like, tax the rich. Yeah, he's going to get into power. He's going to raise taxes on the wealthy by like 2%, right, or like 5% even, and that'll be it. And the fundamental nature and the fundamental structure of the relationship and the system that we work in will be maintained completely, right? That's why the populace says they're the same, because you'll still wake up and go to work for people you hate, doing a job you can't stand, in a commute that you've grown exhausted with. That relationship still exists. And the NDP aren't standing up and saying they're going to change anything about that. They're not interested in that. Right? Because they are landlords. They are the beneficiaries of this system. So they're not actually interested in helping anybody. Hey, Clara, how you doing? Time to circle the wagons, form tribes outside the system, real alternatives, try and protect ourselves best we can with what we got. Yeah, sounds like a good idea to me, Methane. If you can make it happen. If you can make it happen. Like, we are truthfully now, like, with the Supreme Court rulings, I think that lots of people understand now that we are in a true decline. That we have been talking about the decline of America and the decline of North America in a like predictive sort of way. But Roe v. Wade and the Supreme Court essentially turning itself into a Christian theocracy, with the Congress and the Senate being unresponsive to it, it's official. It's official. Like, this whole thing is going to decline. Mutual aid groups. I mean, that's what this is, isn't it, James O'Quinn? Like, share, subscribe. If you donate any money to my Patreon, I'll get you into my Discord. The weakness of this organization, if you'd like to call it an organization, is that we're very spread out. And I always say the same thing to everybody, right? Use this as a place to come and share your successes and cry your tears, right? That this is a solidarity movement, what we're doing here. That you should be organizing locally. You should be finding your neighbors, finding your coworkers. You should be surrounding yourself with a resistance group. That you are the leader of a resistance group in your own territory. That is the fundamental truth. And when you pick a date, print a flyer, hold a protest, create a book club, and it all falls apart and it's absolutely terrible, you're going to come here and we're going to cry about it together. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. And hopefully, as this gains more and more steam, we'll be able to actually start seeing some more serious shit happen. Because we're in that place now. Like, the system is not responding rationally. It's not capable of responding rationally. We've got to do something about it. Hope you're doing well. How can you really be in this world right now? I mean, honestly, Clara, there's two paths that I see for most people. Ignorance is bliss, right? And solidarity. And I'm too far gone to go for ignorance is bliss. So solidarity is what it comes down to. You got to try and laugh at it is really what you got to do, right? It helps that I'm starting to go out and play music. That's helping, right? I went to an open mic night on Friday, had a wonderful experience, had a wonderful time. My voice is my gift, and so I give it freely. And I'm trying to find more open mic nights. I want to get to a place where like I close down this podcast or this stream, and then just leave my apartment and go do an open mic night. That would be what I kind of want to do. And then who knows where that path leads, right? Maybe I'll become internationally famous. Get a Juno or something. Yeah, right. The NDP evolved in 1961 for the merger of the Canadian Labour Congress and the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation of the CCF. Yeah, mutual aid groups and farm shares could be the difference between living well and starving. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and a big issue in my view of what's happening with the NDP is like they still have pretty big ties to union groups, but union groups themselves have become completely capitulated to capital. That unions no longer really view themselves as fighting against capitalists, but like negotiating with capitalists, right? That instead of being antagonists, they see themselves as partners, right? That the union bosses don't actually see themselves as enemies with the capitalists, but as partners with the capitalists. I highly recommend it, Major. Go do poetry. Absolutely. Here's the worst case scenario, man. Like, you're going to listen to some really interesting stuff. That's the worst case scenario, right? And it's always good to get in front of people and have them hear your stuff. You find out pretty quickly what's good and what's bad, right? And the audience is always right. No doubt. All right, I don't know who this guy is. The Corbett Report. Why do we care about him? Anyway. Christian communism may be the way to get rural folk into change. I mean, yeah, at this stage in the game, you're not going to get away from the Christianity stuff. So I tell everybody, Christopher, read your Bible. Read your Bible. Get to know it. Get to know it front and back. It is the language the new ruling class speaks in, right? We're going to have them in power for at least 10 years, right? It's not going to be a small amount of time. Like, and it will not be enough to simply walk around and like shrug and be like, well, I'm an atheist and I'm a secular and I'm all like, that's not going to work. It's not going to be effective. It's not going to be considered serious, right? Like, and don't fool yourself, okay? Do not fool yourself. Capitalism will morph itself into a Christian iteration of itself, right? Like, I know that's difficult for people to comprehend or understand because today's capitalist ethos, the skin that it's currently wearing, is very secular. It's very diverse. It's very like pro diversity, pro these sorts of things, right? Capitalism will 100% slither into a Christian suit, and all of this, like, you're gonna see like high level blockbuster films, high level television shows, things that will be considered very popular, things that will get press, things that will penetrate into the mainstream audience that will be explicitly Christian. It is coming, right? Yeah, Jesus was a hell of a lot more communist than Republican, yeah. And that's why I say read your Bible, so you have it ready, right? So that when you talk to these guys, you can tell them why Jesus was a communist, right? Because he definitely is. Like, he's not a Republican. Like this Republican ethos is the antithesis of Christianity. Like, it has nothing to do with Christianity. It's heresy. Right? What they are preaching is heretical. That Christ himself pulled out a whip and whipped people who talk the way that these guys talk, right? Wish I could be at the protest, but as you say, our problems far spread out. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I highly recommend, like, find your own group. Find your own group of people who are willing to put shit on the line. Shapeshifters, I believe it will morph itself into whatever they think will make the most profit. Yeah. These things must change over time. Yeah. I'm looking forward to, like, the explicitly fascist, like, Marvel movies. Like, Marvel movies right now are not explicitly fascist. They're just sort of fascist, right? But like, I'm really looking forward to, like, a Superman film where Superman is, like, purging the society of subspecies or sub-races or something like this. And that's just considered good. It's right. It's right that Superman did that. It's definitely coming. Like, it's definitely coming. Like, people don't want to allow themselves to believe that it's going to get there, and it will. So get ready for it. John, would you be willing to read a quote from David Graeber where he talks about what is freedom according to the Bible? Yeah, I mean, of course. I assume that this is going to be not a great interpretation. I find that when most people grapple with the Bible, they are unfair. Oh yeah, a master race Superman, yeah. Like, we're already seeing it, right? We're already seeing it in Homelander. We're already seeing it in the TV show Invincible. We're already seeing these sorts of characters show up. It's just that when they're presented to us, we understand that they're the bad guy. Wait. Just wait. Those characters are coming around, and they're going to be presented to us, and they're not going to be the bad guy. Right? They're going to be the good guy. And you can see this even in the way that Disney films are starting to retcon their villains. Right? That Maleficent wasn't evil. She was misunderstood. Right? Like, Darth Vader wasn't evil. He was just misunderstood. Right? And, like, if they can't do, like, a straight up, oh, they were misunderstood, they just change it. Like they did to Cruella de Vil. Right? So, like, and they're constantly trying to teach us that sociopaths and psychopaths are sympathetic. Right? Like, the most recent iteration of Sherlock was a sociopath we were supposed to like. Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory is a sociopath we're supposed to like. There's a really great Dexter. Like, Dexter's a straight up psychopath, literally murdering people, and we're like, yeah, good, great. Right? We're like being trained to like total psychos. And to just be okay with it. And whenever you watch, like, you know, to any of these psychopath dramas or any of this stuff where it's like a documentary, right? A documentary on like a psycho, a serial killer, they're always talking about how awesome they are, right? That they're like they're charismatic and handsome and clever and intelligent and all this shit, right? They're always going on about this kind of stuff, and like, what are you doing here, Eric? You're sharing a lot today, Eric. Let's see. Freedom. This is according to David Graeber. Freedom in the Bible, as in Mesopotamia, came to refer above all to release from the effects of debt. Over time, the history of the Jewish people itself came to be interpreted in this light. The liberation from bondage in Egypt was God's first pragmatic act of redemption. The historical tribulation of the Jews, defeat, conquest, and exile, were seen as misfortunes that would eventually lead to final redemption with... And that's the end of the quote. Expand? Oh, there's like tons more. Hold on. Final redemption with the coming of the Messiah, though this could only be accomplished, prophets such as Jeremiah warned them, after the Jewish people truly repented of their sins, carrying each other off into bondage, whoring after false gods, the violation of commandments. In this light, the adoption of the term by Christians is hardly surprising. Redemption was a release from one's burden of sin and guilt, and the end of history would be that moment when all slates are wiped clean and all debts finally lifted, when a great blast from angelic trumpets will announce the final jubilee. If so, redemption is no longer about buying something back. It's really more a matter of destroying the entire system of accounting. In many Middle Eastern cities, this was literally true. One of the common acts during debt cancellation was the ceremonial destruction of the tablets on which financial records had been kept, an act to be repeated, much less officially, in just about every major peasant revolt in history. This leads to another problem. What is possible in the meantime before the final redemption comes? In one of his more disturbing parables, the parable of the unforgiving servant, Jesus seems to be explicitly playing with the problem. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 talents was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, The master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had be sold to repay the debt. The servant fell on his knees before him. "Be patient with me," he begged, "and I will pay back everything." The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. But when the servant went out, he found that one of his fellow servants, who owed him 100 denarii, he grabbed him and began to choke him. "Pay back what you owe me," he demanded. His fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him, "Be patient with me, I will pay you back." But he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were greatly distressed and went to tell their master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. "You wicked servant," he said, "I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you?" In anger, his master turned him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all he owed. This is quite an extraordinary text. On one level, it's a joke. In others, it could hardly be more serious. We begin with the king wishing to settle accounts with his servants. The premise is absurd. Kings, like gods, can't really enter into relations of exchange with their subjects, since no parity is possible. And this is a king who clearly is God. Certainly there can be no final settling of accounts. So at best we are dealing with an act of whimsy on the king's part. The absurdity of the premise is hammered home by the sum the first man brought before him is said to owe. In ancient Judea, to say someone owns a creditor 10,000 talents would be like saying now someone owes $100 billion. The number is a joke too. It simply stands in for a sum no being could ever conceivably repay. Faced with infinite existential debt, the servant can only tell obvious lies. 100 billion? Oh, sure, I'm good for it. Just give me a little more time. And then suddenly, apparently, just as arbitrarily, the Lord forgives him. Yet, it turns out, the amnesty has a condition he is not aware of. It is incumbent on his being willing to act in an analogous way to other humans. In this particular case, another servant who owes him, to translate again into contemporary terms, maybe $1,000. Failing the test, the human is cast into hell for all eternity, or until he should pay back all that which is owed, which in this case comes down to the same thing. The parable has long been a challenge to theologians. It's normally interpreted as a comment on the endless bounty of God's grace and how little he demands of us in comparison, and thus, by implication, as a way of suggesting that torturing us in hell for all eternity is not as unreasonable as it might seem. Certainly, the unforgiving servant is a genuinely odious character. Still, what is even more striking to me is the tacit suggestion that forgiveness in this world is ultimately impossible. Christians practically say as much every time they recite the Lord's Prayer and ask God to forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. It repeats the story of the parable almost exactly, and the implications are similarly dire. After all, most Christians reciting the prayer are aware that they do not generally forgive their debtors. Why then should God forgive them their sins? What's more, there is the lingering suggestion that we really couldn't live up to those standards even if we tried. One of the things that makes the Jesus of the New Testament such a tantalizing character is that it's never clear what he's telling us. Everything can be read two ways. When he calls on his followers to forgive all debts, refuse to cast the first stone, turn the other cheek, love their enemies, to hand over their possessions to the poor, is he really expecting them to do this? Or are such demands just a way of throwing in their faces that since we are clearly not prepared to act this way, we are all sinners, whose salvation can only come in another world, a position that can be and has been used to justify almost anything. This is a version of human life as inherently corrupt, but it also frames even spiritual affairs in commercial terms. With calculations of sin, penance, and absolution, the devil and St. Peter with their rival ledger books, usually accompanied by the creeping feeling that it's all a charade, because the very fact that we are reduced into playing such a game of tabulating sins reveals us to be fundamentally unworthy of forgiveness. Yeah, it's pretty decent. That's pretty decent work by David Graeber, I'd say. Dexter had less of a problem. At least he killed bad people, right? Like, according to him. And like, just like instilling in us, and like it's the same issue that I have with like Batman. That like, oh, it's cool. He just doesn't kill people. So this is totally cool what Batman's doing because he doesn't kill. So it's okay. I'm just like, shut up. Like, no, it isn't. Like, it's not like it's not okay that Dexter is doing this because he kills the bad people. I'm like, no, bro. This is no way to organize a society. Every 7 years, the debt was supposed to be wiped out in Israel. Yep. Thank you, Isaac. I mean, I think that we should do a similar thing. A debt jubilee. Only 2 mass shootings in the U.S. today. Is that an improvement? Thank you, Grinning. Bringing in the good news. Thank you. Do you trust the source? How do you know the numbers being reported? Yeah. Why quibble? Yeah, exactly, Grinning. Let's take the good news. Only 2. We did it. It also demonstrated the hypocrisy of the Christian. Yeah, I mean, that's not hard to do, especially these days. Like, to display the hypocrisy of the modern Christian, one only needs to look at the Great Commandment, right? Like, the book explicitly calls the Great Commandment, right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Love your neighbor as yourself, right? That's the Great Commandment. If you wanted to interpret that secularly, that would be give a shit about your environment, right? And love your neighbor as yourself, right? And modern day Christians are not really interested in that, honestly. And aren't really interested in serious conversations about serious issues. Like the abortion issue. Like they're being children about it. Like they're not being serious about it at all. Like, is abortion unfortunate? Yeah. Nobody's happy about it. I think that's the thing that they miss, right? They're walking around thinking that people who are doing abortions are happy about it. When they're not, they just understand that it must be done on certain occasions, right? That, and I actually find that, like, the justification of, like, it's murder, and it's like, no, it's not, or, like, that whole formulation, utterly irrelevant. It's completely beside the point, right? Like, there are times where a woman's life or health is threatened by her pregnancy, and it must be terminated. Like, to say anything else is to be a child. Straight up. Is to just be a little baby, and to just be crying about the fact that reality exists. And that's all these modern Christians are. They're just crying, squalling little babies who never grew up, refused to grow up, refused to see the world as an adult, as a grown-up of any sort, and are just insisting that the way to resolve this situation is to just let those women die. Like, that's the bottom line. And now there's like fucking bounty hunters and shit over it. Like, it's as grotesque as it can get. And it's all just rooted in a type of total childishness. Like, it's just complete childishness. In a society that's seizing up, vigilante stories are more popular. Yeah, I mean, America has always had a long history of vigilantism, right? Like, before the superhero genre, which is like Batman and like the vigilante Batman, who we all just accept. We're all just like, yeah, there's a vigilante. He dresses like a bat, normal, right? Before him, it was the Lone Ranger, right? Like when it was the West and all this. Oh yeah, Major, you missed it. So I just found out, this is so fun, isn't this great? I just found out that women, right, who are leaving the state, so like say like the state of Missouri, right? Women who are leaving the state of Missouri, let's say, in order to get an abortion elsewhere, can be hunted down by a bounty hunter, captured, and turned in for a bounty. Isn't that just the most fucked up thing you've ever heard in your whole fucking life? Isn't that just like the most crazy fucked up thing you've ever heard in all your life? I need to look this up. I didn't even look it up. Let's take a look. Abortion Bounty Hunters. Here's the title of the movie that we should make, or the show that we should make. Abortion bounty hunters. No. No. Dude, Texas bounty hunter abortion ban. For more than 6 months, people in Texas have been unable to access abortion. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, come on. No, we got to get to the juicy stuff. Bounty hunter. Come on. You guys are burying this lead so hard, dude. Another U.S. state passes, fine, abortion bounty hunter law. Another U.S. state passed a law allowing abortion providers to be sued in civil court. Conservatives across the country ramp up their effort to overturn long-held. Come on, guys. We are here for the bounty hunter. How are... No. I don't understand how we don't already have like an expose done. Who are these bounty hunters? Like, how do we not have like an expose on somebody like this? The Texas law that bans abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy includes an unusual measure designed to ensure the law is enforced. Residents of the state can sue clinics, doctors, and nurses, and even people who drive a woman to get the procedure for at least $10,000. The financial incentive was singled out by Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor in her latest dissent last Wednesday. In effect, they have deputized the state's citizens as bounty hunters, offering them cash prizes for civilly prosecuting their neighbors and medical procedures. Dude. This is like... Just imagine like Better Call Saul, right? Just imagine like a lawyer like Better Call Saul, right? And he's just like prosecuting, like he'll give you $500 for a tip. He'll like if you give me a tip off that there's a lady getting an abortion, you let me know and I'll give you $500. Simple, clean, no questions asked. You want $500 cash? Well, why don't I just do the law? Do you know how to do that? You know how to do that lawsuit? No, you give me $500 cash on the table right now, right? Tell me who the lady is, and you leave all the rest up to me. Well, I could get 10 mil, I guess, right? Welcome to America, America. My local town brought out the SWAT team for the parade. Basically an implicit threat to protesters. Yeah. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, saith the Lord of hosts. Malachi 3:10. I don't mind if you want to put like super baller. There's definitely baller shit in the Bible, man. Like there's some super cool shit. You want to put some super cool stuff in the chat, I will for sure read it. I mean, how can you even prove or show that particular intent? Like, I don't get it. Yeah, since when do they care about that? Yeah, the bounty hunter thing allows legislatures to accomplish their goals through civil law rather than criminal, yeah. I tried mentioning this was coming like 6 months ago, the whole civil suit thing. I worry this paves the way to things other than abortion later. For sure, dude. There's already people who are deeply worried about like the overturning of gay rights, trans rights, minority rights, right? Like there are already states that are putting through all kinds of laws that are going to make it more difficult for minorities to vote, even though like who gives a fuck about voting anymore? Like it's so irrelevant. Maybe heavily armed citizens arrests. Oh yeah, for sure. In the meantime, let's actually go through some of the stuff I've got. Oh, hey, first things first. I know somebody put a number up earlier, so let's actually do it. I got 10 people watching right in this moment, so I expect to see 10 numbers in the chat. What are we doing? Today's number is, on this glorious July 4th, America Day.
Here we go for today's. It's July.
We got a 3 from JR. We got a 1 from Methane. Who said 5 earlier? Someone said 5 earlier. Christopher Da Silva, you're in on a 5. I'm here. I'm here for a 7. Still waiting for the mystical, magical 7 to land. Got a 9 from Grinning, 4 from Isaac. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18. James O'Quinn. What a card. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. 3. JR. Ding, 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 ding. JR. Was that your first thing you said today, dude? JR literally just goes in and it's just like, 3. It's a 3. And I'm like, okay, we believe you. Well done, JR. You're the magical winner today. You get all the prizes, all of the gifts coming your way. May the energy of David Lynch carry into your life. May something happen in your life that is confusing but meaningful. It'll have you scratching your heads going, what the fuck just happened? And you'll spend a couple of weeks trying to figure it out. But when you do, you'll feel better for having done so. You got to type out the letters after 3 weeks of typing it out for you to get your number. Exactly, JR. Exactly, bud. Okay. This is 388, right? I trust 388. They're pretty good when it comes to polling data. This is the Canadian voter intention, right? If the election was held today, right, who would vote what? And the blue bar right here is the Conservatives. If the election was held today, the Conservatives would get about 144 seats. 170 is for a majority. The Liberals would get 129, and the NDP would get 34. This would mean that it would be the Conservatives that would form the government, as long as the other parties went along with it. So it's feels very much like how it felt when Harper was on the ascension. That Harper ascended into a minority government, then a majority, right? And I feel like Pierre Poilievre, who is likely going to be the leader of the Conservative Party, is more than capable of doing the same thing. It is do or die right now for the Conservatives. There's been enough grumbling internally that something needs to be seriously done. That if the Conservatives do not actually score a victory in this next election, the Conservative Party itself could break up. Right? It pays to remember that the Conservatives are a coalition. They're a coalition of Christian groups and of corporate entities. The old Reform Party, right? And then there was the... Justin never obtained a majority. Yeah, he had a majority party his first time out. Right? He seized a majority, and then it's all been minorities from there, right? So he went, boop, burp, burp. His first government was a majority government. And but since then, it's been minorities all the way through. And this one is particularly loathsome because it's essentially propped up by the NDP, right? As you can see, the NDP just sort of a junior partner in the Liberal, whatever this is, right? And the big story is that the Conservatives are the ones that are getting more people signing up. The Conservatives are the ones that are getting more people joining up. Pierre Poilievre's very effective. He's very effective. All right, I'll say it over and over and over again. Canadians vote for the most effective liar, right? That is the number one thing that Canadians vote for. They don't actually vote for who they think is going to help them. They vote for the person who lies to them and tells them sweet little nothings, right? Like that's all. It's like it's like a young woman being wooed by a man, believing, oh, we're gonna fall in love and have babies together and live happily ever after, and then he does her once and leaves, right? Like that's Canadian politics all the way from the start to the finish. And already, if the election was held today, you'd have a Conservative Party, and they're even within striking distance, right? Because this is just the median, the average between the two. They're within striking distance to a majority. My gut tells me that after a couple of years, this nonsense, right? Like, everybody's going to be like 3 years older, right? I'm going to be 42. All of these like 18-year-olds are going to be 21, right? Like if you're 28, you're going to be 30 something, right? And we're going to be looking at these worthless liberals who are not doing shit. Like they're doing nothing. Like they're just placeholders for corporate power. And we're gonna see what happens in the United States, where everybody just like what, and not even the United States. Like what happened here in Ontario, right? What happened here in Ontario is literally nobody showed up. Like 55% of the electorate did not show up, and why? Because they saw no meaningful difference between the parties, right? They consider the NDP and the Conservatives to be the same party or the same kind of party. So they're just like, forget it. And the same thing is going to happen federally. Like, people are just not going to show up to vote for these guys anymore. And the people who are showing up to vote Conservative will. Right? And that's going to be pretty common. So in 3 years' time, we should expect some kind of surge in Conservative popularity, especially as the campaign starts to ramp up. Especially as people actually listen to this Pierre, like, and the thing that's really kind of making it more of a shoe-in for me is that Pierre looks and sounds really good, right? He looks and sounds really good, right? Like, Andrew Scheer was a dweeb. He looked like a dweeb and he sounded like a dweeb, and nobody gave a shit about him. Aaron O'Toole was an egghead, right? And both of them were just trying to polish a pig, right? Both of them were just trying to put lipstick on a pig and be like, here's our policy platform. And it's just like a fat, ugly, stupid pig that's got lipstick on it, right? Well, Pierre Poilievre is going to put a nice little sheet in front of that pig that's got like a very handsome chicken on it. And Canadians are going to be like, that's not a pig. That's a very handsome chicken. And they're going to go for it. And then after the election is over, after a little bit, the curtain will come back and we'll all see that it's the same fucking pig. Like, it's the same thing, right? It's just that Pierre is Pierre is willing to do what Scheer and O'Toole were never willing to do, which is lie, right? Pierre Poilievre is a very effective liar, and he's going to do it very, very well. And Canadians, as always, are just going to fall for it because we love it. We love it. We love being lied to. Please tell me sweet little lies, right? That to me is like one of the fundamental failings of this political system, is that people can be lied to very effectively. Like, or let's put it in the best terms possible, which is that people will be swept up in a fervor, right? A hysteria. Right? We can get very starstruck. We can get very rose-colored in our perspective. And a person coming along talking a big game can really bolster you and elevate you. And people become disinterested in what is real and what is realistic and what we should expect genuinely. If they're not actually interested in that. People want to believe in something, and they want to put their energy towards something, right? They want that hope and change, kind of like, they want to feel like something is happening, and they want to be part of something that is happening, right? And it doesn't matter if it's real, right? And maybe Pierre Poilievre is sitting there being like, I do intend to do these things. I want to alleviate the difficulties that people are going through. I want their lives to improve. I want this kind of stuff. But he's not willing to confront the system of capital, right? Like he benefits from the system of capital, right? So you can say what you like, right? And he will. So I suspect that we'll see Pierre Poilievre, at least a minority government, come the next election. But we'll keep a close eye on these polling results as they go along. Again, I keep asking myself, like, what's the point of the NDP and the Green Party? Like, what are they even here for? Right? Just to capitulate the capital. Siphon off those leftist leftist progressive votes as best they can. Oh, what else? Baby boomers are more sensitive than millennials, according to largest ever study on narcissism. A new study, the largest ever conducted narcissism, looked specifically at hypersensitivity, a trait that helps determine how narcissistic people are. Its findings suggests that, contrary to popular belief, millennials aren't more sensitive than the baby boomer generation. In fact, it's the other way around. Generally speaking, as individuals in the study got older, they became less sensitive, and the researchers found hypersensitivity sharply declined after a person turned 40. But when researchers looked at generation-specific trends, they noticed that overall, older generations were more sensitive than younger generations. A new study suggests that, contrary to popular belief, millennials aren't more sensitive than baby boomers. They just literally took the same paragraph and said it twice. This is a fluff paragraph. Shame. For shame. Anyway, something I just wanted to share. I don't usually go in too deep on the baby boomer millennials stuff, but this one was just too much. I just had to put it in here and be like, look. The boomers, they're so sensitive. Pierre kind of sucks on Russia and Israel. They all suck on Russia and Israel, dude. They all suck. Like, there isn't a single person in the parliament that's even attempting to create a dissenting opinion on Russia and Israel. I think there might be like one NDPer you could find who's a little bit like, isn't what's happening in Palestine a genocide? And then they probably got shit on by their party. We already went through this, but worth pointing out again. Millennials may lose up to $675,000 in Social Security benefits. Isn't that fun? Millennials who often gripe they won't see a dime in Social Security may be right all along. Counting on entitlement benefits when they retire may be a fool's game. Unless there are reforms to the Social Security program before the surplus is depleted in 2034, millennials should expect roughly a 20% reduction in Social Security benefits when it's time to turn on their monthly checks, according to a new report conducted by Health View Services, a provider of retirement data to the financial services industry. That largely aligns with the annual report from the trustees of the program released earlier this month. For 35-year-old millennials, the midpoint age of this generation, the loss of lifetime benefits for earnings between $50,000 and $150,000 today would be $365,000 to $675,000, according to the paper's findings, using the 20% reduction as a guide. I just like when's it gonna happen, do you think? Sensitive in a good way or a bad way? I don't know, dude. I just wanted to point it out, that's all. Like, how long do you think people are gonna put up with this shit? Like, do you think we're just gonna quietly let it happen? Seems like we're just quietly letting it happening. You know? That we're all just kind of like shrugging. That literally we only seem to get agitated and actually go out and do something when people are literally executed in the streets. Seems to be the only thing that mobilizes people. Like, if there's a person in your city that gets publicly executed by a cop, then people are willing to do something. But if the system decides to abandon you, 20%, you know, whatever, get fucked, go die, right? I've got a really good TikTok video. Where was that? Yeah, like this is in Vancouver.
$1,000. Somebody's children. This is the state of Vancouver right now. This is your Canada. Recently, we were meeting with the governor of California, giving him high fives. Well, both of you have a massive homeless problem. I don't know if you know it, or I don't know if you're in your time as a prime minister, if you've ever set foot down here, to see the reality of your Canada right now. This is post-COVID, post-restrictions. This is the state of homelessness and addiction. So this is a call on you right now, Trudeau. Come down to Maine and Hastings in Vancouver and start to immerse yourself in the actual problems of Canadians. Sons and daughters,
So what's the audio doing, dude? Like, what is it? Is it echoing? Because I don't know what's going on with the audio. That's so annoying. Ever since I changed things, for some reason the audio is awful. So, sorry about that if the audio sucks. Echoing and faded, yeah. I gotta do something about it. I don't... Every time I mess with it, I think I've got it solved, and then it's just not any good. Oh well. Sorry about that. So, let's take a pivot. Let's talk about Ukraine. How long will Europe support Ukraine? That's starting to come out of the New York Times, right? You've got reports. Russia takes key Ukrainian city of Lysychansk. Ukrainian forces withdraw from Lysychansk. Ukraine forced to withdraw. Russia claims control of nearly entire province of Luhansk, right? So let's get to the area. People like post-apocalyptic movies, that's for sure. So what this means, right? So there's Luhansk, the city that they are talking about. Let's just do a search. I haven't actually done this. Lysychansk. Yeah, there you go. So, boop, right here. Right? This basically gives them total control of Luhansk, right? The whole point of this thing was to seize the Donbass region, right? Like, that's the whole point. This whole area here. And more and more, my Luhansk flag is on the way. Good for you, Major. More and more, it's looking like Russia is being completely successful. There are reports now that there was an attempt to cauldron, right? What's been called cauldroning the Ukrainian military. The bulk of the Ukrainian military is in this region, right? That's where the bulk of it was, because that's where they're shelling Donetsk from, right? That they exist in this area here. And the Russians have been trying this entire time to surround that region, right? Unsuccessfully. They keep trying to push in. They keep getting pushed. Well, now we're getting serious reports, incredible reports, that cauldroning has happened, and that we're starting to see larger and larger groups of Ukrainians surrendering. Like, it really is only a matter of time. And simply put, like, there's no military victory here for Ukraine, right? Like, the only thing that can change this situation, I've been saying it from the beginning, is a pretty major offensive coming from the West, right? Like, a pretty major offensive, like manpower, like actual men, are going to have to come into Ukraine from this direction and push this way. It's the only thing that's going to change the fate of Ukraine. And so once again, we find ourselves in a position where the Russians are making gains. The Russians are seizing all the territory they said they were going to seize, doing the thing they said they were going to do. And the big question that is on everybody's mind is, for how long? How long are the Ukrainians going to put up with it? And the thing that's fascinating is that all of the polling shows that the Ukrainians are good to go, right? That really is the truth. That while this war is going on, the Ukrainians over here are basically like, rah, rah, let's go. And I can't help but feel like that's because, you know, the war is here and they're over here. You know what I mean? Like, you can be rah, rah all you like if you're not the one getting bombs dropped on you. You know? So, we'll see for how much longer this lasts. But every report I'm seeing, everything I'm seeing, is telling me that the Russians are being successful. And it's, at this point, it's just a political conversation that needs to happen. Yeah, anyway, that's my big take on it. Like, Zelensky himself acknowledges, right? Lviv? What about Lviv, bub? Anyway. It's so sad what's going on there, man. Like, it's so crazy to me that, like, the thing that's frustrating about talking about this war is that nobody knows about the Donbass war, right? You're just not allowed to know or talk about the Donbass war. Like, when I talk about this, I'm not calling it I just called it the Ukrainian war, but I should stop calling it the Ukrainian war. I should start calling it the Donbass war, because that's what it is, right? That's what this whole thing is. Right? It's not the Ukrainian war. It's the Donbass war. It's a war that was started by the Ukrainians going into the Donbass region and shelling the shit out of it. Right? That's how the whole thing started. NATO performed a coup against the elected leadership, installed its own leadership, and they started shelling the shit out of the Donbass region. And this ultimately draws Putin into the war. Right? Like, it's not the Ukrainian war. It's the Donbass war, because that's what this is all about. This is literally what the war is about. That's what Russia is trying to seize. That's what Russia is putting its resources into. It's their declared objective. I just wish we would all call it the Donbass war. And I fear that there are people who, like, because I've come out pretty strong in support of the Donbass people, right? And so in support of helping those people, right? It's interesting how leftists say how much they care about workers' rights and how much they care about the freedom of workers and all this kind of stuff. Well, what about the Donbass workers? Where do they fall into that? How come when it comes to actually helping people who are literally fighting a defensive war, right? It's just like dead silence. We're just like not supposed to take it seriously all of a sudden, right? That the best leftist critique you'll get is like, well, NATO encroachment, right? That's what leftists are always talking about, and like the big names too. People like Hedges, people like Chomsky, right? The farthest they're willing to go is, well, NATO encroachment's a big problem, right? The head of the CIA, when he was the Russian ambassador, wrote about NATO encroachment, big problem, right? All that kind of stuff. But then they'll always say something like, but that doesn't excuse what Putin did, right? Because they're not actually talking about the Donbass war. There's only one commentator who I've heard, I shouldn't say one, the commentators I've heard talking about the Donbass war are Jimmy Dore, Aaron Mattei, and I think Max Blumenthal as well. Those guys are willing to talk about the Donbass war and the coup that happened, right? And like, it's pretty much being swept away, and leftists are more than happy to go along with it, right? Especially those kinds of leftists who are like, oh, all forms of imperialism are bad, and this is just two imperialist powers that are fighting, and we should be trying to throw off the shackles for the working class. And I just keep saying the same thing. Well, what about the working class of Donbass? What were they supposed to do? Like, what were they supposed to do? What were the working class, the working people of Donbass supposed to do? We're just supposed to forget about them? Oh, okay. Like, we're just supposed to foment a, workers' revolution while being shelled? Like, what? What are we talking about here? It's very strange time. Like, it's a very strange conversation to have with people. Especially, like, nobody knows about it. I think that's the oddest part about it. And so people look at you like you're a kook. They're like, what are you talking about? And you're like, I'm telling you the events that as they occurred in the Donbass. Right? But if you talk to them about it, you're just a kook. You're, oh, what are you talking about, kooky kook? Don't you know that Putin just invaded it for no reason whatsoever? He just woke up one day and just decided to do it because that's what happens, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm the kooky one. Whatever you say. Don't want to look at facts or evidence or like, what actually happened, right? Forget about that. Oh well, just another thing for me to be vindicated over. Meanwhile, here in Ontario, Ontario is losing 175 acres of farmland a day. Per the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, it said that data presented in the 2016 Census of Agriculture from Statistics Canada, Ontario is losing an average of 175 acres of farmland to urban development every day. But what does it really mean? In terms of actual area, the OFA noted that it's about the size of 32 city blocks, 135 football fields, 437 hockey rinks, or 2,635 tennis courts. But, as the OFA so poignantly stated, it is so much more. 175 acres is more than an area, more than a number, said Peggy Breckfeld, president of the OFA. This is the land where we grow the food we eat, fibers for the clothes we wear, sources for fuel to power our vehicles, and flowers to enjoy and brighten our day. To break it down into agricultural terms, Ontario farmers can grow quite a lot on 175 acres. And remember, we are losing 175 acres a day. On 175 acres, we can grow. Grape growers typically yield about 2.64 tons of grapes per acre, or about 349,272 bottles of Ontario VQA wine. The average yield of winter wheat in Ontario in 2020 was 83 bushels per acre, over 125 acres. That is the equivalent of 653,625 boxes of bran cereal. More than 9 million apples can be plucked from a 175-acre orchard. That's enough for 3.2 million glasses of pure apple juice. It will yield enough fresh strawberries to make 611,800 jars of strawberry jam. You can grow 3 million pounds of carrots on 175 acres, which is enough to make 1.6 carrot cakes for every family in Ontario. You can have quite the game night watching your favorite team with enough cheddar cheese for 1.3 million servings of nachos, 273,000 chicken wings, and 1 million quarter-pounder cheeseburgers. More than 532,400 turkey dinners, enough to provide a turkey dinner to 133,000 families of 4 over the holidays. Enough eggplant to make more than 7 million servings of baba ganoush. More than 58,000 packages of bacon, the equivalent of providing 4,800 households a package of bacon every month for a year. How did the OFA calculate the 175-acre per day statistics? Between the 2011 Census of Agriculture and its 2016 edition, Ontario lost 320,000 acres of productive farmland. Average that over the number of days between those two surveys, and it works out to 175 acres per day. Go all the way back to the 1996 Census of Agriculture, and Ontario has lost 1.5 million acres of farmland, or more than 200 acres per day. Whichever way you look at it, it is an unsustainable hit to one of our most valuable and finite natural resources, said Breckfeld. Domestic food production is vitally important to our communities. It ensures we can support ourselves no matter what is happening beyond our borders. Plus, it is fresh, healthy, and affordable. The 2021 edition of the Census of Agriculture will be released later this spring. Will the rate of farmland acreage loss increase, or will it go down? The Ontario and other provinces have made inroads, perhaps a poor choice of words, into preventing urban sprawl from eliminating farmland, so there is reason for optimism. Of course, farmland will continue to be eradicated by urban buildup until it reaches those imposed barriers. So, for the foreseeable future, we will continue to see farmland being destroyed, but with a caveat. We hope that the 175 acres per day will be greatly lowered. We wonder where the famines are going to happen, right? We wonder why. Like, we're losing farmland that we don't need to be losing. It's completely pointless what we're doing. Like, it's just destructive, right? It feels more and more as we go along that we are simply destroying for the sake of destroying. That we're just, like, you take a look at, like, Ford's stupid highway, right, which is supposed to go along here. It's just going to be so destructive. It's just absolutely going to be completely destructive for no reason whatsoever. Just pointlessness for the sake of it. The Duran YouTube channel talks about Donbass on a daily basis. Glad to hear it. I have been tuning into the Duran more and more because of this reason. Because I feel like they're the one, they're the only source that I've found anyway that is repeatedly hitting on this point. I had forgotten to mention it, but you're right, Nova Scotia. And it just seems to me like it's almost completely glossed over. Yep. Chomsky even talked about worthy and unworthy victims. He's been a bit circuitous about it, though. Like, I think it's fair to critique Chomsky in terms of his... One of the things that I think it's fair to talk about Chomsky, and it's fair to critique Chomsky, is, like, domestically, he's very strong. Like, when it comes to what's going on domestically within the United States, he's very, very strong. But when it comes to foreign affairs... like what's happening in the rest of the world, especially communist countries, I just don't think he knows what he's talking about most of the time. Like, I don't think he's as well researched. I don't think he knows as much as he does domestically. Figures like Michael Parenti, for example, are much, much better sources when it comes to a critique of what's going on in international affairs. Anyway, I worry that there's like a big lag going on in chat, guys. Like, can somebody just put a 1 in chat when they hear this? I just feel like there's a really massive lag all of a sudden. Like, usually we're able to do more of a back and forth, but all of a sudden it seems as though the oddity's right on the ball. Okay. Earl Grey and also John Mark Dugan are good. Oh, good to hear. Here, let me take a look at these guys. Okay. Leg's not as bad as I thought it was. YouTube. Let's take a look at these guys. We got Earl Grey. Ukraine strikes, killing 5 civilians. Oh yeah, okay. This guy looks to be doing like... wow, this guy seems to be doing like a really in-depth. Good for him. Done easy. Earl Grey and John Mark Dugan. Always looking for these guys, man. Beach life in Moscow. So this is more like... this is more like just like life in Russia. Yeah, all right. I'll hit it. I'll hit it. You guys know me. I'm a big fan of the walk around videos. You guys know me. Hope you guys are doing well out in the world, man. What a crazy time. I don't think I'm going to read this one, but straight up, documents show how Ottawa intervened in Tanzania to benefit Canadian mining firms. Empire, right? Like, I think one of the big turning points for me as a thinker was realizing that, like, this is an empire, right? Like, we always sort of look at the United States and we talk about the United States empire, but Canada is its own empire in its own right, right? The ethos that it has is very similar to the ethos of the United States, that culturally we're actually very similar to one another. The only thing that really protects us from the extraordinary extremeness that the United States has got is that we have different structures. Like here in Canada, we're structurally stronger. Like our court system is not as... our court system is stronger than the American court system. Our electoral system is not as capitulated, right? Like, I can imagine a universe in which it is possible for citizens to actually get a party going and actually do something. that the major hurdle, I think, for most people trying to engage in electoral politics is financial. That, you know, if you can spend $1 billion to get an election, you probably are going to get that election. Because people are easy, right? Yeah. Same imperial core, different country. We're just a comprador nation to U.S. imperialism. Well, and Ben, like, there is some truth to be said about, like, even if we weren't, right? Even if we weren't an imperialist nation in our own right, like, I feel like we are, like, stuck in this lackey position with the United States no matter what we do, right? Like, our entire ethos seems to be, well, they're not invading us, right? That, like, the United States goes, we're gonna go in and we're gonna get Somalia, we're gonna bomb Somalia, and we just go, okay, babe, like, whatever you say, you bet. Like, we for sure enable America, for sure. The question, of course, being that, like, if the United States chilled out, would we? Right? Like, if there was, like, a chill out period in the United States, like, how chill would the Canadians get? Right? And as this whole climate change thing starts to build and get crazier and crazier, and as, like, this land starts to become, like, this is a fucking desert, like, things are going to get super ridiculous, dude. Like, and we've got so much land and so much territory, and there's only, like, 37 million of us. Like, there's going to be more and more people who are just going to flood up towards Canada. That's for sure going to happen. And, like, how long until the nice veneer just falls away? Right? Yeah, U.S. chill, good luck with that. Yeah. No, I mean, the United States is headed for a civil war, right? Like, it'll be interesting to see if there ever will be, like, a battle line of any kind. Like, I don't think it's going to go down that way. I think it is going to be like a state-by-state sort of thing, that states will begin to balkanize and begin to shift off of it, that the whole idea of a unified United States is just going to stop being, that California will split off, Texas will split off, right? Like, each individual state will become its own individual thing. And you'll have, like, little groupings, right? Very likely that the South will rise again, right? Like, that kind of thing. And then shit just gets real wacky, right? Then shit just gets real wacky. Because, like, it's extremely believable to me that the southern states will just do slavery again. Right? Like, that's extremely believable to me. Like, we see people come into this chat. You guys know who I'm talking about. Who are just, like actual Nazis. Like, people who actually defend Nazism, right? Like, it's believable to me. New York, California, Texas was Florida. I know who I'd put my money on if it really got into it. Hey, Barnabas, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. I mean, Texas is the most well-armed, for sure. Like, the southern states are the most willing, I think. Like, if it came down to, like, a real firefight, like, who are the guys? Yeah, it was a 5 today, Barnabas. Good try, bud. Like, when you hear this sound, yee-haw! Where's that sound coming from? Right? Look into the new Atlas. Less conservative than the Duran. Oh, you're right, Methane. My mistake. You're correct, Methane, and I don't mean to offend the great lineage of David Lynch. So let us. I will fall on my face. He was a 3. God damn it, he was a 3, right? But you know what? 3 is half of 6 and 8, as we all know. Sorry. Okay. Compton, you're telling me look into the the new Atlas. Oh, yeah, I know this guy. Yeah, I'm already subscribed to this guy. Yeah. Oh, hey, this guy's gotten, like, real deep into it. Dude, I gotta try to seek these guys out a little bit more, I think. I gotta get a little bit better at this. I'll be real honest with you guys, okay? Over this last weekend, I completely tuned out of everything. I need a vacation, guys. But this looks good. This looks good. Partnership in Blue Pacific to turn Pacific Islands into anti-China war zone. Oh my god. Russian ops in Ukraine. Snake Island. Russia gains in Donbass. Western narratives. See, there you go. Here's this guy. Look at this guy. He's got maps and shit. Unbelievable. Will we see an annexation of Canada? I would be very surprised to see that kind of thing because Canada is so compliant. Right? Like, Canada is so super compliant. Yeah, we don't need to be annexed. Like we operate as we are now. We operate as a vassal state, right? We don't need to be. All right. Yeehaw, Alberta. And honestly, like, if it came to war, I actually think that would be way messier. Right? Like, the way things stand now, the United States has a pretty sweetheart deal going on, right? Like, look how much territory it can control, right? Just by kind of vassalizing us. And we all kind of talk amongst ourselves and get it worked out amongst ourselves politically. But in the end, like, our military does what the United States wants it to, right? So it gets what it wants from us, and it doesn't need to, like, send in military. And if it ever did, like, that would be a very messy affair. It'd be a very difficult and messy affair. Like, the amount of territory alone, right? Like, in terms of, like, firepower and manpower, the United States would probably win, but it wouldn't be clean. Like, it wouldn't just be like, we marched in and we own the place now and you do it. And we all go, yes, sir. Like, no, it's going to be way messier than that. And you've got, like, huge territories and huge provinces that for decades would be resisting and would be grinding in, right? So there's just no reason for it, you know? Of what's happening in Ukraine. Jackson Hinkle. Didn't Hinkle get banned recently? I heard that he got banned. The new Atlas, the Duran, Richard Manhurst. My first annexation post got blocked, of course. Who knows what the YouTube rationale is, dude? I know. I can tell. I can actually tell from the chat. You got, like, I'm sick of anything to do with Ukraine or war. We should be ignoring what the media pushes, not constantly seeking out fresh information. It's too much. Yeah, it is too much, Methane, and I feel that way sometimes. Like, this last weekend, I really felt that way. Like, I don't want to. Like, it's ridiculous what's happening. And I think the thing that makes it the most ridiculous is how senseless it is. It's the senselessness of it all that is astounding. Like, what are we gaining here? Like, what are these people hoping to gain? What are the positive modifiers? You know, like, if this was a video game, let's put it in terms that are silly and ridiculous, because it's all silly and ridiculous. Like, if this was a video game and you were playing as the United States, right? You're the United States, right? What are you gaining here? What's the positive modifier for you, right? Like, the only thing that makes kind of sense is we are starting to see Russia makes massive oil discovery in the Arctic, right? It's one of the largest recent findings on the Russian shelf. Just in case you thought we were actually going to make the transition away from fossil fuels, get fucked. That's not going to happen, right? So, like, America is looking at things in a very ruthless like very, very ruthless, animalistic sort of a light. That like it needs to dominate and control. And if it can't own territory, it needs to destroy that territory. Just take a look at what they did throughout the Middle East. Right? This entire ethos is if we can't have it, neither can you. That's the entire ethos of the United States. And to me, that's the only positive for them that's coming out of Ukraine and what they're doing in Ukraine. Is if we can't have it, right? If we can't get leadership in there that's completely capitulated and bought out to Western forces, then you can't have it either. And we'll even make you destroy it. That's how committed we are to this. You know? I see Ukrainian flags everywhere I go. So much fanaticism. Never seen anything like it. Well, I mean, are you seeing it like on the streets? Or are you seeing it in digital spaces? Because we're starting to see more and more credible evidence that a lot of that like Ukrainian craze that swept through the internet was CIA shit. USA as a video game, multi-kill, yeah. Like, it's so pathetic, you know? Like, it's pathetic what the United States has done and how it operates and the way it thinks. It's just like this servile, it's subserviated itself to the concept of profit, that everything must be done for dollars. And I think one of the most sneaky things that capitalism has done is it's convinced people that it's not an ideology. I think that's something very sneaky that it's managed to achieve. That something like communism is an ideology, but capitalism is not an ideology. Capitalism is apolitical and aideological. It's non-ideological somehow. When it is an ideology, right? Like it's of course it's an ideology, and it's such a simple ideology, and it's so straightforward that it's easy to miss and dismiss. And the heart of the ideology can be get as much as you can for yourself. That's it. That's the whole thing, right? Just get as much as you can for yourself. It doesn't go any farther than that. That sacrifice friendships, family, breathable air, workable land, sacrifice everything you can, your life, your time, other people's lives and other people's time, on the basic principle of get as much as you can for yourself. That's the ideology of capitalism, and that's why it's a death cult. My comments are being blocked. Hey Adam, how you doing, bud? Corbett equals anthropogenic climate change denier. Oh, so he's a fucking loser. Yeah, that's probably why I don't know about him, right? I try real hard not to pay too much attention to complete and total losers, right? Like at this stage in the game, if you're a climate change denier, you're just a total loser. Like you might as well be trying to convince me that like the moon is hollow, or now even the Bigfoot guys, I'm like, yeah, Bigfoot guys. Like I feel like your life is kind of sad, but like I get it. Flat earthers, like I think flat earthers are less losers than climate change deniers. Like climate change deniers are massive losers. Like should be shunned. Like flat earthers shouldn't be shunned. Like we should make fun of them. I think making fun of flat earthers is fine, because like obviously the earth is not flat. Like it's real obvious. Flat earthers are always kind of charming in a way, you know? I'm always kind of like, you guys with your dumb shit. My favorite one that the flat earthers say is they'll go, bro, if you stand on one side of like a lake and have like a telescope, you can look across the lake and you'll see the other side. If the Earth was round, it wouldn't do that, dude. And I'm always just like, hey, if you have a cup, right, and you stand on one side of that cup and you look across, you'll see the other side of the cup, right, if there's water in it. And then you take a bunch of shit and you put it in the cup, so the bottom of the cup is round, but guess what? The top is still flat because water fills whatever vessel it's in. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? Flat earthers are fun, man. But like, climate change deniers should be shunned, right? Like like what they are espousing is not charming. It's not cute. It's not, I'm going to dissent against the, like, it's dangerous. It's psychotic, right? And all they are trying to do, and what they are actually doing, right, is betraying you and your children. Like, they are actively attempting to do massive damage to the society on purpose. They should be shunned. And the people who befriend them or keep them around should also be shunned. Like, these people need to be treated like dangerous people. Like, if somebody stood up and said, I'm a pedophile, you would shun them, right? Same thing with climate change deniers. Yeah, that's a good place to put these guys. Like, on that same kind of a level. Like, nope. And anyone who thinks differently, I'm just like, why? These guys are actively trying to kill you. Like, what are you talking about? Just a massive, massive loser, then. I don't need to pay any attention to this guy. Outside of the fact that he exists. Like, and that was a big thing for me with Peterson. Like, Peterson went on Joe Rogan's podcast and started talking about climate change and made some comments, and I immediately was like, okay, bye, you're done. Like, I don't need to be nice to this guy anymore. That's why I say to people, like, if I find out that you're still a Peterson guy, I'm just like, get the fuck out. Like, nope, we're done. Like, I do not respect climate change denialism or dismissal. I don't respect it. If you are a person that's going like about climate change, I don't respect you as a person. I don't think that you have a credible opinion on literally any subject. Like, if a climate change dismissalist or a denialist tells me what they think about a movie, oh, you should watch this, it's good. I'm just not going to factor it into my decision. I just that type of person is on the same level as a pedophile to me. Oh, what was the exact thing Peterson said about climate change? Let's get into the Petersonian zone. The thing about climate change is that climate is just so big that there's too many variables, so you can't because when you talk about climate, you're really talking about everything, and if you try to break down everything, well, you can't possibly create a predictive model that'll be accurate. It's just a bunch of rambling dumb shit, right? It's just a rambling dumb shit that literally every climate scientist immediately just like dunked on him, just like completely dunked on him. It's like, yeah, if you're gonna straight out be a COVID denialist, like if you're gonna straight out say that COVID doesn't exist, yeah, get out of here. Like, get out of here. We don't need you. I've seen only one big Ukraine flag on the back of the monster truck since this all started, but my wife gets out more. Yeah. You probably came across Corbett at some point and immediately forgot to ignore him. Your father's really into his stuff. Look, if your father's into his stuff, you got to straight out tell him, like, stop. Like, get completely fucked. Like, this Corbett loser is not more well-read and not more well-informed than NASA, right? Like, he's just not. Like, sorry, like, the guys that put men on the moon are telling us this is a problem, right? The head of NASA has been telling us for decades this is a problem. Literally every scientist from any field, with the exception of a couple that were literally bought by fossil fuel industries, are telling us this. Fossil fuel industry scientists themselves are telling us. Like, if your source is some guy on the internet, right? And I say this about myself as well, by the way. That's why I try to use source documents. That's why I try to turn this place into a sane space. Someone said earlier on that this is a sane space. Well, what's making it sane? That we're living in reality. And if I say something and somebody wants to go, that's wrong, John, and then present evidence that shows me that it's wrong, I'll change my tune. You know why? Because reality matters more than my opinion of it. And if a person is going to literally use a guy like me being like, whoa, look at it, whoa, instead of like NASA, get completely fucked. Like get completely fucked. I just don't like how climate change has been co-opted to blame out individuals, rather than corporations, Yep. Can't talk to anyone on the subject. They always get sidetracked off in La La Land. Yet the individualization of climate change was very successfully done by the corporate power structure. That instead of talking about structural issues, right? And that's why a guy like Peterson was very useful to the power structure as well. Because what does Peterson do? Right? He deflects away from the discussion of systemic issues and the system and starts talking about the individual, right? Which is why anybody who has a systemic structural analysis, even a loser like Zizek, can dunk on him, right? Because if you have no structural analysis whatsoever, then you're a child, right? I live in a city with very large Ukrainian population, so it's everywhere, even on billboards. Yeah, for sure. The Ukrainians are for sure all about it, dude. Like, and the liberals are like, because most, for God's sakes, Chrystia Freeland is huge into the Ukrainian, like her grandfather was a Nazi collaborator, right? Like a Ukrainian Nazi collaborator. So like, she's big into the into the Ukrainian population. I'd like to clarify my statement there on purpose. I am not saying that Ukrainians are Nazis. That is not what I'm saying. That was a Freudian slip. Are there Nazi groups that exist within Ukraine? Yes, absolutely. We know who they are. We're very aware of them. At this stage, you got to be living in like a delusional La La Land to think otherwise. But that does not mean that all Ukrainians are Nazis. Although Zelensky has banned all political parties that are left of center, leaving the Nazi party intact. So what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen, everybody? What do you think is going to go down? Somebody said something here that I only like the version of Peterson that you channel through yourself. Yeah. It's actually kind of fun to do Peterson, Like, to talk like this and to get all high up in the register. My favorite is when he sits there and he's got this kind of look on his face. He's got this look on his face where he's like he's a little boy pretending to be serious. Like, never have I wanted to tell someone just eat your vegetables more. He just sounds permanently anxious to me. Yeah, it's look, once I found out that Peterson was diagnosed with, like when Peterson went into that coma, right? Peterson went into a coma. Why did he go into a coma? Because he was eating only meat, right? It was obviously bad for him. It was obviously a bad idea. He should not have done that, obviously. He should eat his vegetables and clean his room. And go to bed on time, Jordan. And and when he awoke from the coma, they kept him in observation, and they did a mental assessment of him, right? And the diagnosis was, and this was all leaked, the diagnosis of that they came away with was that he's schizophrenic. And of course he denies it, and then writes a big thing about how doctors are dangerous and all this kind of shit, right? The thing that people do when they don't want to accept reality, right? They reach out and they project and they find any excuse they can possibly find, right? Because the hardest thing for a person to do is self-analysis, is to admit that they were wrong and to admit that they've got a failing, right? And so what you are seeing of Jordan Peterson at this stage in the game is an unmedicated schizophrenic. There's like no other way to talk about it anymore, right? Like if we want to be real serious about this guy, like if we wanted to actually like talk about a human being and analyze a human being as if they were a historical figure through time, well, point 1, not point 3 or 6 or down in the bottom as a footnote. Point 1, we have an unmedicated schizophrenic who has been allowed to be a PhD professor in high-level institutions like the U of T and Harvard in the sociology department. There just comes a point where we've got to start asking big, serious questions of our institutions, and big, serious questions about the type of people we are venerating, right? Like, this isn't to say that schizophrenics are bad. Like, this isn't to demonize schizophrenia, right? But, like, nobody knows about this. Nobody talks about Peterson's schizophrenia. Nobody talks about the fact that he's a schizophrenic. Like, and an unmedicated one at that. And the more you actually invest into getting to know Jordan Peterson, and the more you dig into his life and his history and all of this kind of stuff, the more you see, yeah, like he displays all of the signs of a schizophrenic. Like he's and so I'm quite sympathetic to his position, honestly, because like here's a man with a mental disorder that he refuses to do anything about, who's simultaneously also dealing with this insane level of fame that he's attempting to maintain. And a guy like him is always going to capitulate principles in favor of popularity. That's really what it comes down to. Like, there are certain people who I don't listen to, even though I agree with them ostensibly, because I think that they are only in the position that they are in as a opportunist, right? Like, and as soon as I think you're just an opportunist, as soon as I think you're just here because it was popular to be here and popular to do it, I'm not really that interested anymore. And that's more or less what I look at when I look at Peterson. That, like, he's found his position with what's his name, right? The other pinheads, Shapiro and these guys. Like, which, incidentally, the guy that played Sheldon Cooper should definitely play Ben Shapiro. If somebody was to do like a movie or a television show about Ben Shapiro, they should do that. They should get that guy. He'd do a killer job. Just nail it. Terence McKenna is great to listen to. Terence McKenna was better to listen to when I was a younger man. Now that I'm an older man, I can see how he got a little fucked up. Like, he got a little fucked up. Like, you can see it on McKenna. He definitely looks like somebody who got... And he did a lot of acid, dude. Like, he did a lot of acid. So it's not to say that McKenna didn't have interesting things to say, but, like, a, he is a big proponent of that stoned ape theory, right? And the stoned ape theory had a lot of traction for a long time, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's probably not right. It's probably inaccurate. I think that, and for those of you who don't know, the stoned ape theory is the idea that, yeah, is the idea that apes were aping around, and then they started interacting with psychedelics, and then they had psychedelic trips, and that shifted them over into consciousness. That's sort of the argument. And I don't act, the older I get, the more I don't like that idea at all. Yeah, this is I want a Shapiro, and we will adopt your babies. Dude, this picture is so fucking unbelievable. Like, if I can find it. Peterson, Shapiro. Who's the other guy? Crowder. This is such an unbelievable photo that they took. Of course I can't find it. Oh well. Basically, it's a photo of the three of them, Peterson, Shapiro, and Crowder, with a sign that says "We will adopt your babies," as described by Ligandese here. And it's just so fucking stupid. Like, it just absolutely kills me how fucking stupid it is. Like, there was a justice that said, no one's forcing these women to have sex. And he promptly deleted it because everybody went, bro, yeah, they are. That's a big part of the conversation, that people are forcing these women to have sex. And we're all just ignoring the shit out of it. Methane coming in with a real non sequitur. I really should play through Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice sometime. Such an interesting game concept. That's a pretty baller name right there, dude. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Jesus. Hellblade. Yeah. Here we go. Let's go, Brandon. Oh yeah, I've seen clips of this. I've heard good things. I've heard really good things. I've got too many games on my plate right now, dude. That's the problem I'm having. Right? The problem I'm having, I'm still going through Elden Ring because I am in love with the game. I think Elden Ring's a great game. And then I've picked up Graveyard Keeper again, and I've picked up somebody gave me a game. It's vampire something. You play as a vampire and you build a little town. Anyway, I'm not invested into it yet, but I would need to get finished with these games before. Graveyard Keeper's a great game, dude. I love it. And I got all the expansion packs and everything. So I bought it years ago, played it through one time. But now I'm having a nicer time just sort of chilling with it, you know? It's less about getting to the end and more about just keeping a graveyard, right? And I don't know what it is, guys. This is a fundamental truth about me that I think I need to... I don't understand why, but I think necromancy is super cool. And I always have. The second I was able to play as a necromancer in any game, like Diablo 2, the second I was able to be a necromancer, I was like, yes, please, yes. That is what I want. I want to be a dude going around raising skeletons. That's what I want. And anytime I can play any game and there is a necromancer who can raise skeletons and raise the undead, I'm like, yes, that's the thing. And anytime I play a game and I go, I'm not going to be the necromancer, and I do something else, I immediately, about an hour in, I'm just I'm going to restart this with the necromancer. It's something, I don't know what it is about myself. I just think that they're cool. I think necromancy is a cool idea. I think the whole concept, I have been in funeral services. I have worked with the dead, quite literally. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know why I have this. I don't want to call it a fascination. Like, that's not right. Like, I don't, like, seek out the dead, you know, or any of that kind of stuff. But, like, it's definitely there, where if I'm given the option to be a necromancer, I'm just like, yes, please. So I don't get it, but it exists inside of my consciousness. And so when I'm playing Graveyard Keeper, like, what Graveyard Keeper is, it's like, think Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon, but you are working as the keeper of a graveyard, right? And invariably, because you're living in like a supernatural world, invariably you get to like raise dead people to be your servants, right? So instead of you going and chopping lumber and getting the lumber, you got these undead like corpses doing it for you. Hi, Loaf. Hi, Loaf. We're talking about necromancy and how to be the best possible necromancer. And I'm talking about a game called Graveyard Keeper. Yeah, so long as you stay to necromancy and not necrophilia. Yes, thank you, Methane. An important distinction. Yes. Nah, bro, I've got too much respect for myself. I would never, ever have sex with a corpse. That would never, ever happen. That's weird, man. That's weird. It's weird that people do that. Like, that's a weird thing to want to do, you know? I'm doing well, you know, Loaf. I'm doing well. I'm trying my hardest to keep saying, you guys help with that a lot, you know? You guys help with that a lot. Somebody earlier gave me one of the best compliments I think I've received, which is, this is a place of sanity in an insane world. And, man, I'm ever happy to hear that. I'm happy that you guys come here and you feel like there's like a little bit of sanity going on. Even if all it is that you're like chatting with me about the nonsense of life and how everything is. And then somebody started talking about video games. Imagine tripping on shrooms with an ape. Yeah, we got a bit of Terrence McKenna in the conversation. Yeah, dude, I imagine tripping on shrooms with an ape would be a good time, right? I think that would be a really good time. You and that ape would have a great time. I'm absolutely positive. I work with the dead and then Tuesday comes? I don't get it. I don't get it, CR. Sorry, bud. I babble a lot. I'm sorry. No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. All right. What else do we have on the docket? What else do we have on the docket? We already talked about this. Don't need to talk more about that. Oh, yeah. Millennial burnout. The first generation predicted to go backwards in terms of life expectancy. Author Anne Helen Peterson on why young people are burning out and what can fix it. It's from the Irish Times. This is by Emil Nyazi. When I reached writer Anne Helen Peterson on the phone, she's remarking on the smoky air outside her home in Montana, a symptom of the wildfires burning in Washington, Oregon, and California that have enveloped large swaths of the country in a thick, gray haze. I'm apologizing for the screaming infant and toddler in the background of my own home, a byproduct of the global pandemic that has forced parents to precariously manage an already tottering seesaw of childcare and work. It's a fitting landscape to discuss Peterson's new book, Can't Even: How Millennials Became the Burnout Generation. While the issues that have contributed to the millennial condition of overwork and stress have been building for some time, 2020 saw them boil over in an unprecedented way. In many ways, it laid bare the failures of what we've come to call the American dream. We are a nation in decline. Millennials are the first generation that is predicted to actually go backwards in terms of life expectancy, Peterson, who is 39, says, and that should be a pretty profound realization. Though most of her book was written before COVID brought the world to a standstill, Peterson managed to include a foreword in the book to address how the pandemic has exacerbated an already tenuous situation. It was ready to go to the printer, and in mid-February I thought, I definitely need to acknowledge this, she tells me. In addition to work becoming this fraught spot of just general anxiety, I've talked to people who are like, oh, I thought I would have so much more time because I wasn't commuting anymore. And then they've just filled that time with replying to emails at 7:30 in the morning. You know, and don't have any of that interstitial space that was once available to them. There's no decompression time. While that erasure of personal time has been highlighted by the pandemic and ensuing lockdown, the notion of work-life balance has been eroding for some time and helped inform Peterson's 2019 BuzzFeed article about millennial burnout, which formed the basis for her book. That piece broke the dam and started a conversation around the mental exhaustion experienced by so many in Peterson's generation. I first read her essay fittingly as I was beginning my day at work, desperately nursing a lukewarm coffee, patiently waiting for its stimulating effects to wake up my sluggish brain. My 14-month-old was on his third daycare cold, and I had been up all night because he had been up all night. Ironically enough, it was my boss who had sent me the article, its headline all but screaming at me as I clicked on it. How millennials became the burnout generation became an instant online sensation, passed around between overworked friends and shared widely on social media, often accompanied by a crying emoji or a gif enthusiastically clapping in agreement. The piece put words to our collective exhaustion and roiling anxiety, as Peterson outlined her own inability to accomplish small tasks, drawing a link between the piled-up laundry and unmailed letters and the crushing strain of our imbalanced working lives. Her errand paralysis rang true for the rest of us. I'm better at recognizing my own burnout behaviors, so how can I set myself up to do the things that give me joy? The new book parses the economic, cultural, and institutional makeup of the generation born between 1981 and 1996. It tackles rising student debt, the gigification of the modern workplace, and the increasingly blurred lines of work and home life. And while some of it is well-trodden territory, like the chapter What is a Weekend?, which revisits the idea of leisure, a subject already articulated with more verve in Jenny Odell's How to Do Nothing, Peterson manages to give new insights on the cumulative effects of these factors. The book touches on how we don't experience these inequalities equally, especially in times of global crisis. Racialized communities are being particularly affected, not just by the virus itself, but by the economic fallout. Mothers have been affected by school and daycare closures, threatening a mass disappearance of women from the workplace if second or third waves force another lockdown. And though Peterson's book focuses on an overwhelmingly white, suburban, and middle-class millennial, she understands the inherent privileges at play. Where Peterson really shines is when she gets personal and writes about her decision to not have children. Wrangling with ambition, climate change, and fears over her own personhood, she manages to contextualize the millennial condition of burnout and illustrate the painful choices, or lack of choice, it can render in our real lives. Rather than spell out the how, she finally interrogates the what now. And that is the question many of us in the U.S. will be asking ourselves as we look ahead towards the presidential election in November. Regime change in November is not necessarily going to fix everything. It might fix a couple of small things, but it's not going to fix everything, she stresses. While larger change may still be far off, I ask Peterson if, on a personal level, she was able to get a handle on her own burnout through the process of writing the book. I think that I am better at recognizing my own burnout behaviors, she tells me. So how can I set myself up to do things that give me joy? And whether that is reading fiction or just doodling around in my garden and watching the plants grow, those are some of the things that have been really restorative for me. But no, my burnout is not solved. Still, even if she can't offer up a solution, in speaking with other young people about what drives their fears and compounds their worries, Peterson is able to build up a compelling archive of the millennial condition. As one young woman in the book put it, the darkness in the world can't win so long as you don't stop running. For a brief moment this year, I looked like the pandemic would be a breaking point, a chance to stop running for a minute. But by now, much of the world is operating with varying degrees of normalcy, with schools and businesses tentatively reopening. I ask Peterson what she thinks about our ability to adapt to these new normals. We can't do this forever, she exclaims. I think that we're going to have to decide as a society and as a generation to figure this shit out. And we should do it by surrounding the halls of power. Simple as that. Simple as that. Insert canned applause. Thank you, Methane. That's hilarious, dude. I should do that. I should have like a little... I have a little thing. Here, hold on. That's so funny. Oh, where are you? There you are. Is it this? Nope, I'm looking at it upside down, that's why. The problem is that it stops abruptly. It should fade out, right? That would be better. But it goes like... and then just nothing. Werewolf Druid, yeah. And Boson, they just did a new patch for Diablo 2 where they really ramped up the werewolf build, by the way, and the Boson. They've like changed everything now in Diablo 2. Now's a great time to get back into Diablo 2. Necromancers are cooler than vampires. Of course necromancers are cooler than vampires. Vampires are lame. They're just kind of lame. Like, I'm sorry. Like, their whole shtick is that, like, they gotta complete, like, they gotta constantly, like, suck blood. And, like, the story of the sympathetic vampire, right? Why is there always a vampire that's good? You know? Like, I'm just so, like, get fucked with it. Do you find life expensive in TO? Yeah. Like, rent is ridiculous. The rent is absurd. If I was still with my girlfriend, it would be easier because I would have somebody to split the rent with. I think about like moving and getting into a position where I've got a roommate. It's like, I know what I'm paying for. I'm paying for the privilege of living alone, right? But basically all my money goes into rent. Like, I don't really have like spending money, right? So like everything I'm doing is constantly just like trying to make sure that I've got enough money for rent. And the rent is so fucking ridiculous. So, and I've looked around and been like, oh, I could move elsewhere, but like the rent's not much better elsewhere. And also, like, I like the job that I have. You know, I work a capitalist gig, and I know that if I moved back to Manitoba, let's say, I would just end up in like another shitty cafe job, right? It's just like, no thanks. Like, what are your thoughts on the TV series True Blood? I never got into True Blood for exactly this reason. I just don't like vampires aren't cool. They're not. And like Twilight kind of killed it, you know. I've heard good arguments. Like, I don't make fun of Twilight because I think that Kevin Smith is right. That Twilight is like a gateway drug. That like young women start with Twilight and then might hit like Buffy and then, you know, eventually will find cooler shit, right? So don't make fun of people who like Twilight because Twilight's like the gateway drug into better stuff, right? And if you make fun of them, then they might stop. And so there's no reason to do that. But, you know, for me, I just don't think they're making this shit for someone like me anymore. Like, I just don't, like, I look at the most recent, like, Marvel movie, Morbius, right? And it's just like a realization that's like, oh, you're just not really interested in taking the premise seriously. That, like, here is a being who is simultaneously living this, like, very eclectic, strange life, but also bears, like, a curse, you know? And frankly, whenever the subject matter is approached, it always is lame. It always is, like, pretty lame. I don't know how else to describe it. Like it's just kind of hokey, just sort of dumb. Like if you actually paused and thought about like what a vampire is and what it could be capable of, it would be extremely dangerous. Like a being that is capable of appearing as a human being and existing in human society, but is also this like psychopathic serial killer, but is also immortal, is also fucking immortal. Like, the shit such a creature would be able to do would be outrageous. And I just feel like every single time the subject matter is approached, I just kind of, it feels very goofy. Like I feel real goofy after watching anything with vampires in it. Even the good stuff, even like the Anne Rice sort of stuff. I'm just like, you're just kind of goofy, right? And most of the time, I'll tell you where I think the goofiness really is. The goofiness in my mind is that if I was a vampire, I would never have an all-in position. There would just literally never be a moment where I would get myself into a position ever where these lowly humans would even have a shot at coming at me. It would just never be a thing, right? Like, you're a vampire. What are your weaknesses, right? Garlic, getting shot in the heart with a wooden stake, decapitation, the sun, right? And crosses depending on your lore, but like that's it. And like, you're telling me that like I just feel like if it came down to it, I would always just leave. Like, this is the thing that pisses me off the most about these vampire movies. And, like, when a vampire hunter comes and, like, slays the vampire and all this. Like, there's so many times they're just like, why are you even there? You're an immortal being. You can literally just wait this guy out. Like, what are you doing, son? Like, what are you doing? Like, get the fuck out of there. Leave. Go away. You can turn into a bat and fly away. Like, leave. So many times I find myself watching a vampire movie or a show or something, and I'm just like, why are you here? Why are you even fighting this fight? Like, what are you doing? It happens all the time. I just am astounded at how often the writer, and it's obviously the writer, needs the vampire to be stupid in order for the humans to even stand a shot, right? Like, just leave just doesn't seem to be in the vampire's ethos. And I'd be like, that would be my go-to. I would constantly be doing it. If I even suspected, right? Like, this is how committed I would be to this idea. If I'm a vampire and I'm even concerned, if it even floats into my brain space that this guy is putting together that I am a vampire, I'm gone. I'm gone. I don't need to be here. Why am I here? I don't need to be here. This place isn't that cool. I'm leaving. Get completely fucked. Right? Wait him out. I'm thousands of years old. This guy's a fucking ant to me. I don't need to fucking, like, stick around, risk it. Like, I don't need to fuck around with this. And it just seems to me like it never is that way. That vampires are always like hyper committed to this like thing that they're doing at this moment in this time. And I'm just like, that's just not how I would roll at all. I just, whoa. Yeah, anyway, I feel like I could go around in a circle on it. I just got an alert that there's a curfew in Akron, Ohio starting at 9 p.m. 60 plus rounds to take down an unarmed man. What are you talking about, dude? What's Rusty talking about? Do you think Toronto will continue to get more expensive in the future? Yeah. Dude, like, the price increases are just going up. Like, they're not responding rationally to them. I think that's the thing, right? Like, there's no political body, provincially or federally, that is responding rationally to the fact that corporations are jacking up prices. That and they're not responding rationally to inflation, right? Like what's caused the inflation? Well, they printed a ton of money and they jammed it into the economy. And where did all that money go? To the rich, right? So what would be the way to actually deflate the economy or get inflation under control? Tax the wealth away, right? That would be the thing to do. Is that happening? No. So how are they tackling it? By increasing like the borrowing rate by like 1.2% or something like that, right? Like there's just like, so what do they do? They're punishing the middle class and the poor, right? They're going to commit austerity against the public. That's what they're going to do, right? So they'll get, quote unquote, get it under control for a second, right? But inflation is just going to go up. Like it's not going back down because they're not doing anything to actually control it or maintain it. And they're not, and there are political solutions. Like Nixon literally, like back in the 70s when there was an inflation crisis, Nixon literally went on the radio and said, if you raise your prices or your rent or your wages as well, we will come and get you and throw you in prison. There you go. Inflation crisis solved. Like pretending like there aren't solutions to it is babyish. And the quote unquote solutions that they're pursuing now are not going to work. Right? They're going to have like a temporary kind of halting sort of a thing. But now we're getting stories like, I even have this one right here. Yeah, here you go. So Blackstone, with almost $1 trillion in asset management, sees huge prospects in the Canadian rental market. So you've got like a $1 trillion corporate entity like Blackstone getting involved now. Prices are only going to go up. They can't go down. They literally are incapable of going back down. Like maybe you'll see like a little dip. Like we experienced like the tiniest little dip in the housing market and everybody went, oh, it's over. And I'm just like, you're fucking morons. Like what a bunch of dumb shit to actually believe this, that it's actually going to go down. No, it's just going to keep going up and up because we are heading, well, I shouldn't say heading, we're here, but it will be more obvious as we move forward that we are heading back into feudalism, right? That the price that's being set is being set for the feudal lords, right? It's not being set for, mom and pop. It's not being set for, the guy, the quote unquote middle class worker. It's not being set for that, right? It's being set for the feudal lords. That if you give all the money to a couple of people, then you raise the prices because those guys are the people who have all the money. Right? I see this happening in my own business where I work, right? We recently raised our prices a little bit, right? So what's happened? We're seeing less traffic, right? But the average ticket value goes up, right? So if you gave more and more money to less and less people, then you need to raise your prices more and more so that less people come. But when the people who do come, they spend a lot of money, right? This is how capitalism collapses back into feudalism. That eventually any store that exists will have one person come into it once a week or whatever and buy one thing for $200,000. Like, I want the newest iPhone, right? And only people who have the wealth to be able to buy it will be able to buy it, and the price point will be something like $200,000, and that'll pay for the year, right? Like, that's where this goes. Like, that's where this whole thing goes. And the prices only go up because we want it to be that way. And if we didn't want it to be that way, we would stop it. But we're not surrounding the halls of power and demanding it, so it's going to continue this way. I like vampires in the Oblivion games. I mean, in terms of, like, them as, like, monsters, sure. I tend to think about them more as characters, though. I heard a couple good things on Morbius, haven't seen it, so I had a little glimmer of hope for it. Nah, Skyrim maintained it. Well, but yeah, again, in Oblivion and Skyrim, they're just kind of monsters, right? They're not real, like... Dude, like a vampire living in, like, medieval Europe, if you died as a vampire living in medieval Europe, that's on you, bro. That's completely on you. You can fly. Like, you can fly. Like, just leave. I don't get it, man. Just leave. Like, just go somewhere else. You know? Like, if there's, like, some guy who's putting together a posse, or, like, has, like, a kingdom or something, and there's, like, a king, and they're coming to get you, or all this kind of stuff, fucking leave. Just leave. Yeah, I know about this methane, right? In Skyrim, you can get turned into a vampire. You stay for a vampire for a really long time. It's rather difficult to cure yourself. Yeah. I don't know. I found gimmicky would be the word that I would give it. I found it to be gimmicky. That it was just like, whoa, you could turn into a vampire? And really, it ends up just kind of being a debuff. You can't go out in the sunlight. You know, like, like, being a vampire would actually be fucking insane. It would be absolutely astoundingly bonkers. Like, and I just don't think... I just don't think I've ever seen it done justice. Where I've looked at it and been like, yeah, that's exactly as bonkers as I think it would be. That there's always this, like, reduction. There's always this reducing factor. There's always some, like... Yeah, Vampire the Masquerade, I've heard good things about. I played the tabletop version of Vampire the Masquerade. I've heard the video game is quite good. I've just never actually sat down and done it. But, like... I don't know. I just always think that vampires are lame because they're always presented to me to be lame. Right? Like, in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, vampires are lame, right? They become, like, literally she, like, rolls over them. Like, they're nothing, right? Because they're lame. They're not threats. And I'm like, bro, like, a real vampire would be, like, an enormous threat. Like, even one would be just this enormous threat. And I think Rusty made the joke, vampires sucking blood from the young to keep afloat. Sounds like bankers and landlords. Walk out, walk, walk, walk. J-Land Walker? Is this something I'm supposed to know about? Am I supposed to know about J-Land Walker? There's so much going on in the world, guys. Another police killing. Akron declares a state of emergency. Yeah. I don't know what I can say about this anymore, guys. Like, yep. There's another one. Like, and there's going to be big talks about was it deserved, was it this, was it that, like, what do we know, what happened, like, it's the same fucking story, man. It's the same fucking story, over and over again. John Smith, happy America Day, John, to you as well, John Smith, and what a way to celebrate it, right? Another police shooting. Witcher vampires are their own creatures. They're more like animals. They're super ultra OP. Yeah. Because the vampire fights for their property in the old ways, nomadic vampires are basically unkillable on a long enough timeline. Yeah, thanks, Compton. Right? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I just don't. Yeah, I feel like I'm just going back in the circle, right? Which is like, there's just no way that I would ever allow myself to get killed, and that's because that's how I feel it is. I feel like you're allowing yourself to die if you're a vampire. That it's just like. And I can't think of any reason why a vampire would even put themselves into the position to give these pathetic humans a shot. You know? Like, why let them take the shot? It's gotta be that, like, you get to a point in your vampiric life where you're kind of hoping for it, you know? Like, that's what makes sense to me. That if the human kills the vampire dies with this kind of sense of like, oh, okay, thank goodness. Like, it's finally over, right? Like, he's never able to bring himself to suicide per se, but he doesn't greet death with like a screaming like, oh no. Like, there's this kind of sense of like relief almost. Like, that I could really buy into. I could buy into that idea. But it's never presented that way. It's always presented with a like, oh, I've made a fatal error, or like, oh, I arrogantly believed that I could not be defeated and then was. Like, yeah, careless, betrayal, like lust for desire, or any of this kind of stuff. Whereas the vampire that I perceive, like the type of vampire that I think about is this like I would have like an empire set up because I'm 500 to 1,000 years old or whatever, and I have an empire set up, right? And I look at that empire and I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, I still own all that stuff. Like, I'd still have it. Like, it's still in my name. It's still corporate. It's still all that. I'm just going to put that aside for a moment and then go over here to this other existence that I also have set up. That's on the other side of the fucking planet. That I just, like, can step into and just be like, so I'd have, like, John Corp, and over here I'd have, you know, like, Jan Corp. And, like, and if I started to believe that, or if I started to even get a passing kind of feeling that things were going to go awry in John Corp, then I would just pass things over to, like, whoever's responsible for dealing with that. Be like, I'm going to bounce for a little bit, fake my own death or whatever, and then just leave. And then just step into a new life in Jan Corp and just have another empire. I'm thousands of years old. Like, fuck it, I don't understand this, like, plant your feet. I'm definitely going to fight to the death with this human. No, you're not. Like, no, you're not. Like, it's always, like, just let him die. Let time take him. Like, who gives a fuck about this little fucking pea ant? Who cares? Just leave. You know? I would love that in a movie. I would love this in a movie. That like, a vampire would be there and he would have, like, a servant or something. And then the servant would come with, like, news, and the vampire would look at the servant and be like, well, I'm going to leave. And the servant would be like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to leave for 100 years. He'll die. And then I'll come back. And the servant will be like, okay. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you where I'm going to go, by the way. I'm just going to leave. Oh, okay. Should I tell the human that you left? No. Just whatever. Okay, well, it's been nice serving you. Yeah, you've been a good servant. Thanks. And then just turn into a bat and fly away. And that's just fucking it. Like fuck this shit. Oh yeah, Wesley Snipes, like, Blade is a whole other ball of wax, because Blade is also a vampire. How old can Blade get? Is Blade immortal? This is a good question. Is Blade immortal? Great question. He is not immortal. So you can just wait this guy out. Right? Like, this is the thing that I never, ever, ever see in, like, vampire lore. It's just the idea that, like, oh, I'll just leave and wait him out. It's fine. Spending the 4th of July with family, friends, and fireworks. You know, that's a good way to do it, dude. Just, like, it's always nice to be with friends and families, and why not blow some shit up? Why not blow some shit up? Vampires are about stability, their personal status quo with their inherited vampiric nature. Yeah. Hey, Mocked, how you doing? In Saxony, Anhalt, 2 police officers killed a 36-year-old man for the crime of entering an apartment that wasn't his via balcony. Oh. What is the negative folklore over vampire? Oh, what if the negative vampire over vampires isn't true? What if there are people who just don't die? And back in the day, other people accused them of stealing other souls and whatnot. So they're like Highlanders, right? Like what if it's like, what if instead of it's that the vampire lore comes from Highlanders, right? Like, and that it's Highlanders that are real. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, like Highlanders, the whole idea of the Highlander lore, which incidentally, when is that movie coming out? Right? Here we are. Highlander remake. Speaking of things I'm going to absolutely be disappointed by. Highlander reboot release. Come on. It's just like, see, look at it. It's got Henry Cavill as Connor McLeod, right? I'm looking forward to it, dude. I feel, how do you miss? How do you miss with a Highlander remake, right? Like, Highlander it's not that difficult a concept. That's the thing, right? Can a vampire mate with other bats while at bat mode? And will that baby be able to turn humanoid? I don't think so, dude. I don't think so. I think that the only way that vampires reproduce is through the blood swap with a human. I think that's the only way that works. A vampire needs to work in government long enough to learn how to convincingly fake birth certificates. Now we're talking, right? Then when death is faked, wills pass the assets to some other corporation owned by an alternative ID. Yeah. For sure you could do this, dude. Like, are you kidding me? Vampires have the ability to enthrall humans. You don't need to work in government. You just need to enthrall a government worker. Right? Like, this is the shit I'm talking about right here. Right here. Vampires have the ability to, like, seduce and mind manipulate humans. They can do this shit. That's in the lore. Right? They never do it for some reason. I would always be doing it. I would constantly be doing this. I don't know why would ever be a vampire that isn't like, so you're a government worker, eh? So you work for me now. This is what I need from you. Right? And it would be so easy. It would be so fucking easy. There's just no reason not to have this shit done. Uh-oh. Oh. Little stagger. You, come on. Henry Cavill, shut right up, Methane. You and I are going to fight. We're going to fight. Henry Cavill. Yeah. No. Put a sword in this guy's hands. Right? Put a sword in this guy's hands. Let him fight. Look, and the story is dirt easy. This is the thing. Like, this is why I'm actually kind of excited about this Highlander story. Is that you don't need... How dare you mock Witcher, Daddy? I don't even care about Witcher. I actually don't like Witcher that much. I don't watch it. You know, I watched a couple episodes and was just like, okay. But, like... And, like, I don't care about him as Superman. Like, I'll put it this way. I've never actually liked anything that Henry Cavill has been in, but I'm really rooting for him. You know what I mean? Like, Henry Cavill as a person seems like a great guy. Seems like a guy who, like, absolutely is serious about his work. Definitely a good-looking guy. Like, you can't take that away from him. Like, he's definitely a good-looking guy, right? Like, he does the research, right? Like, anytime I see interviews of him talking about The Witcher, he's clearly done the work. Like, he's read everything. He's so he's very, very serious about it. He seems charming and funny, and he just seems like a stand-up all-around good guy, right? So I'm really rooting for this guy, you know? Like, again, haven't seen anything that makes me go like, wow, there's the best actor I've ever seen, right? I haven't even seen anything that I've thought to myself like, yeah, this is a great movie that is going to be remembered, you know, for time and forever, right? Like, he's never done like Godfather, right? Like, and Godfather is one of those films that for sure, People are going to be like, oh yeah, gangsters, Godfather, there, Marlon Brando, there he is, right? But like when it comes to sword fighting, right? He's got the chops. You see it in Witcher, right? Like in the Witcher series, he's got the chops, right? I got halfway through. I got halfway through What We Do in the Shadows and was like, okay, point landed. I got everything I needed halfway through and didn't see the rest of it because I was like, it's going to be more of this and I'm happy. And no, Henry Cavill, yeah, in the last Mission Impossible movie, like he keeps doing all these kind of big things. So to me, I'm like, he's a great choice because he's handsome, he's good looking, he's serious about the work, which to me is very important. Like, it'd be so easy for an actor to do something like Highlander and just be like, yeah, whatever, this schlocky shit, I'm just here for the paycheck, right? I could really see that happening. Because like Highlander is not a well-known franchise, right? It's not even like, you go back and you watch it, guys, and I'm sorry to say this, it's not actually good. Like, it's not actually good. Like, the first movie is actually pretty bad. And then, like, there's some memorable characters and some memorable things that happen, for sure. But it's not a good movie. Highlander 2 was a total fucking disaster. Like, a total fucking disaster. And then, like, Highlander 3 was pretty good. The TV show Highlander was actually pretty good, right? Like, with Duncan MacLeod. Like, who? That guy... You know what, man? I want to know what that guy's up to. Highlander TV series. Yeah. Adrian Paul. Whatever happened to this guy? I really liked Adrian Paul. Nicolas Cage. Nick Cage could be like the villain, right? Like Nick Cage would be the villain. What's this guy doing? Egil the Last Pagan. Oh, he's voice work, okay. At the end of the Santa Fe Trail TV movie, The Outlaw. Well done. Mobland. Oh yeah, Liam McNally. He's an Irish boss. Good for him. Come on, what's happening? SWAT, The Prey, Legend of Carnoctus. This is exactly the shit that this guy should be doing. I'm so happy for him. He's just always been working ever since. Like, because that shit happened way back here. Where's Highlander? Merlin, The Return. Good for you. Highlander, here he was. 98. 92 to 98. And from then, he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to keep working forever. Good for this guy. I'm so happy. I gotta tell you, I root for actors. Like, I root for them, you know? Like, I don't care if the shit they do is good. You know what I mean? Like none of this is good. Like, look at all this shit. Throttle, Gavin Matheson, Seance, Spence, right? Like, all of this shit is schlocky, dumb, and he's like going into it, and he's probably doing schlocky, dumb shit, right? Kids versus monsters. Greg Lovett. You know what I'm talking about? But boy, howdy am I ever happy for him. Oh, he had a role in Arrow. Oh, good for him. He had a role in Arrow. Oh, that makes me really happy. I'm so happy that this guy is doing well. Because, like, he was, like, a part of my childhood. You know, he was Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod. He was in with the whole Highlander lore and the whole thing. I loved the Highlander thing. I remember as a kid being in my backyard with like a broomstick. Me and my friends would like literally do like choreographed sword fights and shit, and it's 100% because of this stuff. And then of course Star Wars gets in there, right? The lightsaber dueling, it infects it and all this. So good for you, Adrian Paul, bud. You deserve it. I think that he should get into these like Marvel movies and shit, right? Like this guy's he's a talent. He's not the greatest actor you're ever gonna see, But he looks good. You can read the lines really well. He would do really well in like a Doctor Strange film. You know what I mean? He could be a cool villain in like a Doctor Strange film. Like, you see it? Do you see it? Like, you get him. You get like a little salt and peppery going on here. Maybe get like a streak of white over here, right? You get him in one of those crazy suits or something. He's shooting magic and shit. This guy would be great. I hope he does like super well. I'm really rooting for him. And I feel the same way about Cavill. That like, I really root for this guy. I'm like, good for you, you handsome devil. You really seized hold of the fact that you're gorgeous, right? Everything's coming into place for you. You're Superman, right? He's Superman. You got to root for this guy, right? Like to me, one thing I'm really happy about Cavill is that Christopher Reeves. When Christopher Reeves played Superman, he was unable to get any other role. Like, being Superman essentially destroyed Christopher Reeves' career in many ways. He was really, really unable to do anything else. Whereas Harvey Cavill, people are just like, yeah, well, Superman, okay. Let's make him be everything. Let's make him do anything. I love it. You never explained The Outlander. I never heard of the series before. Outlander is a series, if I'm not mistaken, about a woman goes back in time to like 14th century something or other. I think that's right. I don't know where that came from. Outlander. I'm only vaguely familiar with it. Thomas Jefferson was George Washington's second cousin, once removed, wife's brother, and they were also both descendants of Mathilda, Holy Roman Empress. Thanks, Mocked. Boo-hoo! I'm only Superman. Oh no, how terrible for you. Some actors really complain about that, like Shatner. Yeah. The movie you're talking... sorry, I'm talking about Highlander, not Outlander. Sorry, okay, right. What Highlander is about, it's about immortals. Human beings become immortals, and so they're incapable of dying. And the only way that an immortal can be killed is through decapitation. So you've got to decapitate an immortal, and that will kill an immortal. And so other immortals will fight each other, because when one immortal kills an immortal, the spirit is released, and then that spirit goes into the living immortal in what is called the quickening. And all of the immortals are aware that there is a time coming that is called the gathering, where all of the immortals will come together into one final conflagration until there is only one remaining immortal. And so the catchphrase is, of course, there can be only one. Because there can be only one, and it is eventually going to happen. Just wear neck armor. Major. Get that fucking shit out of here. Somebody did that, actually. There was a whole episode about it. Where somebody did wear, like, neck armor. And I think they just cut above the armor. I think that's what happened. If I recall correctly. Yeah, there's no perfect solution. Kind of sounds like how the God Emperor came to be in Warhammer 40k. Yeah, sure. And because that's always like the shtick, is that once the last immortal has all of this power, they would be able to use that power, right? And so there's always a concern that the final immortal will be like a psycho, right? Like that it'll be some real ruthless, like demigod kind of person. Whereas, you know, you're supposed to be rooting for, you know, Duncan or Connor McLeod because they're good guys, right? They're the nice guys. Nobody actually thinks that, like, wow, what a terrifying concept. Like, an immortal being with unlimited power. I made and own a chainmail coif. Can't easily slice my head off. An axe would be able to chop through, though. Methane, why do you own that? You know what? I know why you own that. You don't need to answer that. I understand it. I absolutely would be one of these guys that if I bought... I figured this out when I was really young. That if I bought a sword... Like, I've always wanted to buy a sword. But I know for a fact that if I bought a sword, that I would buy a lot of swords. And I feel that way about tattoos as well. That, like, I don't have a tattoo, but I'm fascinated by tattoos. And if I got a tattoo, then I would get all the tattoos. And I know that's true. So I just don't, you know? That's how I feel. I make chainmail. I made a shirt, a bra, well done. I wear a titanium belt daily for the past 15, 20 years. Good for you, Methane. Look at this guy. Making chainmail. Don't you feel sometime, Methane, that, like, you were born out of time? You know what I mean? I feel that way about myself. I feel like I was born out of time. That, like, I actually think... You know when people talk about... Here, we're over time, but I don't care. I'm going to talk about this. So this is Hubu Jubu nonsense. Nobody judge me for what is about to come. You know when people talk about reincarnation, right? They talk about it as if it's like you got reincarnated from the past. You know what I mean? That, like, people think about it, they're like, oh, I used to be a Tibetan monk living in a place here. Or, like, I used to be, like, a feudal basket weaver or something like that, right? Like, I feel like that's how a lot of people think about reincarnation. But if you actually research reincarnation, it's not like reincarnation is not limited to the time stream. So it's not linear, right? So you can be, according to the lore of reincarnation, you can be a person from the future who has come back in time. And I really feel that way about myself, you know? I oftentimes when you do the type of introspective work on the concept of reincarnation, and I've only done a little bit of it, so I don't know that much about it, but anytime I do that work with people, they always come back and they're like, oh, I got this sense of something from the past. And I'm always like, nah, I'm pretty sure that what I am seeing is just shit that I can't explain. And that to me tells me future shit. Like I feel like if I were a reincarnated being, and I'm not saying that I am, okay? So leave me alone. But I'm saying that if I was a reincarnated being, that I think I'm from the future. Like, I think that there's, like, a cooler place. Like, the future that I envision is so much cooler than what's happening here, you know? And sometimes I wonder, like, where do these ideas of what the future should look like come from? And it's nice to believe that, like, it's just the imagination, right? Like, it's just coming from the imagination space, right? But I can also buy into the kind of idea that it's like, no, like, a person comes back from a place that is cooler than this, with ideas about how this place should be, right? You heard it here, folks. John thinks he's a reincarnated being. Shut up. I will say this about reincarnation, is that if I found out that reincarnation was real, like if there was like a science brain guy who was like, we've done the science brain stuff and the math, turns out reincarnation's a thing, I would probably be like, yeah, all right. Like I'm completely fine. Like if people want to talk about reincarnation with me, if people want to deal with that subject with me, I'm okay. Like let's go. Like I don't think you're kooky. I don't think it's a kooky idea. I don't think it's strange. It seems like we don't know what's going on. You know, that's one of the things that I really think helps me with that, is to realize like we don't really know what's going on. And there's enough like, how should I say this properly? I just think that, like, if if you want to believe that aliens are real, I think it's also okay to believe that reincarnation is real. You know? Like, it's not that difficult. It's not a big leap for me. You know? Anyway. Life is weird. Life is so super weird. Sometimes I swear I can remember things that haven't potentially happened yet, but that's crazy talk. What's crazy talk these days, dude? Honestly. I'd be fine if I was born in the past or the future, but now it's terrible. Yeah, green grass, other side of the fence. There's that too, right? Like, and I also feel like people have like a fairly dim view of what the past was actually like, I bet. Like, we tend to hyper-focus on the negative when we look back on the past. And I'm just like, it was probably not as bad as we think it is. It was just very different, you know? Like, and it's tough to imagine the past, especially now as we live in like a digital space, right? We have like a digital life form almost that we're interacting with on a fairly regular basis. And so it's difficult for us to understand life without it now, you know? I have a relative. She says she was reincarnated, born in the late 1880s, living on a 2-story house on a farm in northern Kentucky. She fell down the stairs at the age of 2 and died. All right, man. All right. That's the kind of story that I tend to actually believe because, like, it's so lame, you know? Like, she's not telling you a story about how she, like, is a reincarnated being and she used to be an empress or something, right? Yes, I used to be the princess of Astradan, right? I used to be the emperor of the Ottoman Empire's soothsayer, right? Or something like that. It's just like, it's straight up like, yeah, I fell down a set of stairs when I was 2 and died. I'm like, all right. I believe that you believe it. You know? That's where I end up with that. Like, I believe that you believe it. And like, why else tell anybody that story that's so lame? It's such a lame story. You know? Like, so she's not trying to impress you, right? She's not really trying to convince you. She just believes it. And you're like, oh, okay. I do believe in a form of reincarnation because I believe that God wants everyone to be in heaven and give everyone an infinite chance to prove themselves. But it always is another cycle of the universe. That's extensive. That's extensive. I have like a completely... Yeah, I don't know how reincarnation fits into my overall perception of like... Because I actually feel like some people think that we go through the universe multiple times, right? That like I live once and then I go back and I live this life several times. And I'm like, nah. I think that there's like a multiverse thing going on. That this iteration of John, there are infinite iterations of John. And that each iteration goes through the iterative process an infinite amount of times. And so that creates just a cascading set of differences in what my life actually is. And so I don't necessarily go through that and experience that there are many iterations of it. Right? And that and once you throw reincarnation into that idea, right, then you're talking about like an infinite recursion of reincarnated versions of John. You know what I mean? That like I could be John but reincarnated from this. I could be John but reincarnated from this. John reincarnated from this, and all of the infinite recursions that go out from that. Like, it could be really fucking wacky, you know? It could be really, really fucking wacky. That there is like a John version 1.1 and then all of the 1 point iterations of that. And then you'd have John version 2 point on all the iterations of that. John version 3. And what changes the version is who was reincarnated into John from the outset. Right? So every time any being reincarnates as John, that's a new version. And then there's an infinite recursion of that. So it's just like this cascading flowchart of ridiculous nonsense. I hope I get reincarnated. I don't know. I hope I stay asleep for a while. Honestly. I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way. Like, I'm pretty sure that once you die, there's like a new thing or a different thing. But I do kind of hope that I just sleep for a little while. Like, that's the thing that, like, some people talk about how, like, oh, they're scared of death, or there's like oh, if you don't believe that there's life after death, like, aren't you scared? I'm like, nah, I think I could be not present for a minute. That would not be terrible. I heard of a story of a person who claims that she was the life of a previous woman. The time is very similar because the day the lady died, she was born. On that day, she was able to tell the entire life story of that previous life. Would you be surprised there were a philosopher 2,000 years ago who believed that there was an infinite universe? No. No, absolutely not. Like, all of the ideas that I'm telling you, I've read, right? I didn't come up with this shit. Like, the idea of, like, infinite universes and, like, multiverses and all this kind of stuff, like, it's all been done. Like, it's all been said before, right? Death doesn't frighten me. It's the unknown of it that does. Or the decline, pain, and suffering before. Yeah. I feel you there, Methane. I feel you there. Like, how do we deal with that, you know? That it's built in, you know? I like to think about the way the Japanese theater thought about our decline into old age and death. They called it the way of the flower. And that it was all based on the life cycle of a flower. Very much like the seasons, right? That you had like a spring, summer, fall, winter. And that each phase of it contains its own form of beauty and its own connection, and deserves its own respect and its own honor, you know? And it's difficult, like, this capitalism, this capitalistic society really, really denigrates old age. Like, old people are the butt of a joke in most cases. When old people are presented to us in our media, it is as a joke, typically. That there's a lacking in that kind of decency or dignity that I feel is due to the elderly. And I think it largely comes from the fact that in a capitalist society, elderly people can no longer be exploited. And so they're useless in a capitalist society. And because the presence of the elderly is unsettling for the young, because it reminds us of our mortality and the place that we're going, it's difficult to sell them. So they usually end up being rendered invisible. Which I think is a real symptom of the society that we live in. That the generation that preceded ours, we take them and we put them into old folks' homes, and they end up being completely disconnected from the society that they live in because of it. Like, I have seen news clips of like a news crew going into an old folks' home and asking the people living there, how much does a house cost? And the people living there are saying things like $35,000. Like, they don't know what's going on because we've created kind of a fake reality for them to live in, right? Like everybody is disconnected from everything. There's an alienation from all things, and we've created this false system that allows people as they go into their old age to just disconnect. And yet, who are going out in droves and voting? Those very people. Oh, there's big news about 10 theories why Elon Musk has disappeared in the last 10 days. I don't care at all. Honestly. Like, unless something comes out that he's done some kind of, like, high-level crime or something. I sure don't feel like a flower, only a weed from what I can tell. But anyway, I can measure and view myself through society's current lens. Oh, well. Don't worry too much about that. Elon Musk would do us a favor if he disappeared. Well, guys, with that, we've made it to the end of today's episode. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. The billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes that you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.